which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, we're gonna do roll call. With Councilor Ray. Here. Councilor Williams.
Here.
Councilor Mother. Here. Councilor Schulte. Here. Councilor Evans.
Here.
And I haven't heard from Councilor Cuthbertson unless you're on and you can hear me.
She has 2 family weddings this week, so she may be very busy.
All right, we'll go ahead, we'll move on and she joins us. We'll see her then. Okay, next up on the agenda is public comments. Could I have someone read them? That is public comments on the agenda. We'd like to volunteer that. I guess I'll give it for. Thanks, Councilor.
Notes, public commentary is designated input from the public. Public comment is not intended to be a dialogue between the council, staff, and persons making comments. Any person who raises a question during the public comment is rest assured that the city staff is taking note of the question. And the council and the staff will work together to identify the appropriate city official to follow up. Correct.
Thank you. So do we have any public comments this evening? Don't have anything left? Robbie? No, you're gonna wait for later. That's all right, we don't have any public comments, so we're gonna keep moving forward and through staff reports. We don't have a sheriff's deputy in person. I think it was a report. Do we have anybody online that can help us with that?
We do not, sir, but if you would like, we could come back to the sheriff's report after the other staff reports, and perhaps the deputy will be in.
Yep, maybe just fine. So that'll put you up next, CJ, for the TA report.
Yes, sir. I'll go ahead and scroll down to that portion. My city report is a little bit lengthy this month, and that reflects that we've had a lot going on. Covering July 28th through August 24th. I'm going to hit the major bullet points. And I've coordinated these, or rather organized these by larger topics to keep it easy to follow. So in the first major topic, water infrastructure and the Section 1135 RFP, which we'll be talking about tonight, the water intake request for proposal and the combined water modernization request for proposal have been substantially completed with significant input from the 1135 Technical Advisory Committee. And the scope of this was structured to allow the selected consultant to evaluate what the appropriate long-term treatment would be in their approach, rather than presuming that we'll retain the existing ultrafiltration membrane system. This work with the committee included several months of staff preparation, followed by refinement of the project scope, the engineering tasks, and the permitting responsibilities, along with the evaluation of the treatment system and project scheduling, as well as evaluation criteria and the procurement requirements. We'll get into depth about that a little bit later this evening. The 1135 Technical Advisory Committee, the TAC, I facilitated the second meeting of the TAC, and there was excellent participation from those committee members. We did, like I said, an in-depth review of the RFPs that we'll be talking about later on this evening. And in line with that, I've coordinated with the Army Corps of Engineers, Portland District. They are preparing to provide an update in early September to the city, and that will include an update on their funding, their design progress, as well as their timeline for mobilizing and completing the project. So once that meeting is had, we'll have much clearer understanding of the actual construction and project schedule to share with the folks who will be applying for and the consultant that will ultimately be winning the RFP procurement. We're also working with property owners. I was pleased to see that we had a couple of individuals who are property owners who would be affected by the impoundment elevation change, so the change in water level, who were at that meeting. And they had an opportunity to really listen in. In future meetings, we'll be talking specifically about their concerns, and I look forward to hearing their feedback. And then the water modernization grant. As you all know, we received the $1.5 million grant from the Oregon Water Resources Department. We have a semi-annual report, and that report was due on June 30th. I completed that report, and alongside with that, I completed a reimbursement worksheet, which I developed at the staff level to help distinguish between eligible city time that's attributable to the modernization project and separating that from the work that is directly connected to but separate from the 1135 project. Because those are two separate funding sources. We also I noted within that report that it's possible that our timeline may extend beyond the June 30th, 2027 expenditure deadline. This is planting the seed now to let them know that this would not be a haphazard change later on that was unpredictable, but one that we might actually predict and is related directly to construction timing of that in-water work. So getting that out there and in their hands now was a very prudent move to make sure that they understood what we're doing and why. On the engineering and procurement level, we have another RFP that we'll be looking at tonight. Substantially advanced and nearly completed a competitive RFP, which will bring on board a permanent, or should I say semi-permanent engineer of record. We do need to have a new RFP that goes out every 3 years, but those RFPs by law do allow us to extend them for 1 year at a time, 2 years in a row. So the maximum amount of time that we can have an engineer on board before issuing another RFP would be 5 years. This solicitation establishes expectations for ongoing municipal engineering support, so the things that they would be doing and the things the city would request and require. It also includes development and infrastructure review, regulatory coordination, as well as responsiveness to the city and access to specialized expertise, especially with some of the large projects that we have coming forward. We want to be certain that those folks are able to support us, and I've been pleased with the engineer that we currently have right now on our 1-year contract. We're also looking at the procurement to the tune of around $6,000 for a bioaugmentation. So that is essentially a scrubber treatment, little bugs that are going to eat the stuff, the wastewater that goes into our lagoons. It's been recommended by our DRC, Chuck Scholes. He's provided a specific brand that he proposes we use. However, my follow-up question for him to ensure that we were following procurement laws at the state level was, are there other competing options out there? His response is yes, he's just not familiar with them. So we will be going out and getting 2 additional quotes from other providers and then comparing those to the BioLincius bioscrubber that has been recommended. That likely is what we'll go with unless we find evidence that the cost and or effectiveness of the one that we'll be looking at is actually superior. And in that case, we'll bring that option before council. On planning, land use, and development review. So planning activity has remained really high over this past month. We've had a lot of concurrent applications. It's required significant coordination among our applicants, our public works staff, as well as our engineer of record and Benton County, as well as other partners that have been pulled into those discussions. On the active land use applications front, I've managed a range of residential and commercial development matters that have involved site plan review, partitions and subdivisions, changes of use, as well as parking and landscaping, stormwater, signage, ADUs, and infrastructure capacity. So active work has included projects at 564 Commercial, the Tumbleweed Tap House, the 555 Depot Street sites, as well as the 10th Street subdivision and the ADU that was proposed at 793 Commercial Street. I'll stop here just for a brief moment and mention, Mayor Sheets, I do see that we have Councilor Cuthbertson on board this evening.
Yes, I just noticed that as well. Welcome, Counselor. Thanks for joining tonight.
Wastewater capacity and development. So I've worked with the engineer of record as well as with our public works team to evaluate our wastewater system. And this is associated directly with the subdivision development that was approved at the land use level earlier this year. I've been coordinating with the applicant to make sure that we're identifying the infrastructure concerns that could be challenging for bringing that development online. Thankfully, we do have significant time between now and when those homes would actually need to hook up to that system. The big limiting factor here is not water, but rather wastewater, which is no surprise to this council. I've invited that developer to join the development review committee in September. This follows a meeting that I had with Public Works as well as with the engineer to put our heads together and determine whether or not we can certify that we actually have the capacity at this time, which we cannot at this time, but we are working on a solution for them and proactively pursuing any way that we can to get that in time for them. So we've got about a year and a half before we need to really have a plan in place. More on that later. We also have the South Menton Resource Center. I've continued to coordinate with the food pantry and the Benton County Building Department, and that's regarding what potential path forward the organization may actually pursue. That might include the previously approved permanent facility, which Planning Commission heard earlier this year, or the conversion of the existing residential structure that's on their campus to a permanent commercial use. I have had a couple of conversations with them, including today, and they're keeping me apprised of what their decision will be, and will pursue the land use option that they choose moving forward. They're kind of thinking through what their options are right now. And then on the Planning Commission front, I have spent some time with Planning Commission to really look at the land use code and the comprehensive plan. Again, one of the things that we need to do is go back to our land use code and ensure that it's consistent, which it's not currently, with the comprehensive plan that was approved and passed in 2019. This is also being considered alongside our transportation system plan, our updated Parks Master Plan, which is underway now, and the overlay district changes that may happen to improve consistency along the city's long-range planning goals and documents. Planning Commission is taking that head on, and they also have some work that they'll be doing throughout this month. I look forward to meeting with them, I believe, the week after next, to talk about some edits and updates that we may want to make to the land use code. Regarding finance, budget, and audit. So we've coordinated the commencement of the annual audit with Dawn as well as myself, submitting the requested documentation, the follow-up responses, meetings with the audit team, and review of the individual year-end accounting questions that they have. We've also had a lot of consideration around the city's Springbook software and the arrangement of how it applies to whether it gets capitalized. Just a little bit of detail there that might be a little more than you need, but we were able to answer that question for them. The 26-27 budget. So we've also managed the post-adoption budget review and corrections. We'll be looking at that a little bit more tonight. And that includes things like the Cassell implementation costs and capital expenditures. So we've been working to try to distinguish the matters that actually require supplemental appropriations from those that are just corrections. And as you know, we'll be coming back to council later on this year when we have more clarity around the specific changes to the budget that we want to make. And we're separating that, as I said, from any of the corrections that we'll be making along the way. On the Cassell implementation front, continued to coordinate with Dawn and Cassell. For both the audit and Cassell, Dawn is spearheading that with direction and support for myself. we're giving them the necessary information that they need. And bottom line, we need to get this done by the end of the year so that on January 1, we have a fully functioning Cassell system and zero gap in between financial software. So we want to ensure that we're maintaining continuity. That's been our primary focus. So I want to really shout out and say thank you to Dawn for the work that she's doing to make sure that she's responding to their questions immediately as soon as they have them. I think that we're doing a really great job on that. I also worked with Dawn I brought her into the conversation with CIS. I think this was an important step to complete our 3-year CIS insurance audit and our best practices assessment. That went very well. I'm happy to report that we received our final report from CIS. We've signed off on it. It all looks good, and we'll be having that in front of council just for eyes and review, most likely at the upcoming work session, if that's ready by then. With regard to organizational leadership and staffing, we did complete our administrative assistant recruitment. I want to say that we had an incredibly strong applicant pool. This was a very successful interview process, and Grace Moody, who is in the room with you tonight, was selected for the position and began work during this reporting period, actually, I believe just last week. She's quickly becoming familiar and really engaged in the city operations, and I'm hearing nothing but really great reviews thus far from Dawn. So it's much appreciated that we have somebody in the office hitting the ground running and is excited to be here and do this work. We're also continuing to manage our staff transitions. As you know, we lost Leslie, which is the reason we reopened the admin assistant position. We're continuing to look at some of the workload assignments and to cross-train across those positions just to maintain continuity across admin, finance, planning, and public works. One of the plans I have once Grace feels comfortable with the work that she's assigned at the basic levels is to have her start assisting with accepting applications for planning and providing support on planning as well. So I'm excited for that and our next steps. As council had heard, I think at our last work session, we are working with ADP to convert the city's employee handbook to an ADP hosted resource. And actually, I believe that was the personnel committee I'm thinking of rather than the work session. So this might be new information for y'all. But this is a service that's actually included for free with our existing agreement with ADP. So there's nothing extra that we're paying for here. And what this is going to do is it will provide staff with some very much needed additional support in identifying some future state and federal regulatory changes that may come about over the next coming years. As you all know, states and the federal government do change employer requirements, and they don't necessarily just send you an email and tell you about it. So ADP helps keep us on our toes, and they even have a pretty cool little platform for us to make those changes in real time. So this removes it from just a Word document, and it makes it a living, breathing tool that already exists within the payroll module that staff is using every month to submit their hours. City administrator evaluation, the mayor will talk about this in a little bit, but I coordinated with the personnel committee, had a brief discussion about how we want to handle the structure of the CA performance evaluation. As I think you may be aware, we really didn't have a precedent for this. So I want to shout out and thank Mayor Sheets for his significant work to bring about an actual process that A, we can follow now, but B, is available as really a path for future city administrators and councilors in the future. There's also elections administration. Again, another shout out to Dawn for being on the spot with the responses with Benton County. I've been coordinating with her in Benton County to ensure that authorizations are provided and that the city's responsibilities are completed on time. This was delegated, as I said, to Dawn to work directly with the county election staff on the required forms and deliverables. And at this point in time, it does appear that everything they need from us is fully provided. Also, we're continuing to work to gather information on the public safety contract as it relates to the municipal court. So Don will be taking some steps over the next several weeks, coming up on the next council meeting. I would expect a little bit of an update on the timing and the status of that process. On contracts, partnerships, and administrative policies. So we're pretty close to completing the Pioneer Connect franchise agreement. I've been working with the attorney who's close to getting us what we need on that, as well as with the new staff who purchased the Monroe Telephone Company, the folks over there at Pioneer Connect. We do plan to bring both the franchise agreement as well as a presentation from Pioneer Connect to council at next month's September council meeting. We'll be talking about this tonight, but I also have worked more with Roger Irwin as well as with Public Works on the SBCEA mowing agreement. I did ask Mark to attend their board meeting just a couple of weeks ago on the 12th. That was really well received, and their board did not have any additional requests for edits in that contract. I am eager to get this contract executed specifically so that we have some of the liability protections and other things that are really necessary to be in place. We also had an event application. I wanted to thank council for their guidance at the last meeting. You all established a clear policy for staff, a directive for staff, by authorizing the city administrator to approve similar future applications following the review of the Parks and Beautification Committee. That event, as just a reminder, was to go out in boats and pull invasive plants from the Long Tom River. I've also continued to coordinate with the state, with Business Oregon, and Long Tom Watershed Council, and this includes requests for some outstanding project information and deliverables that we've been requesting from Long Tom Watershed Council. We're close to getting to where we need to be. That communication with Business Oregon has been very strong, and the intent there is to be sure that we demonstrate clearly that we're doing all that we're supposed to on this $50,000 grant, so that we remain in the good graces of the state when we move forward with larger grants for our public infrastructure. And also, that's a pass-through grant with federal dollars, so that is even more reason to ensure that we're being proactive in our communication. This is something that we are doing. Economic development. So the EDC has been working on the city's priorities. Y'all heard a little bit about that previously, and directed the Economic Development Committee to start refining definitions for those 5 priorities. And as a brief reminder, those align directly with the Comprehensive Economic Development Strategy. I've actually even linked that in the PDF here so that if the council or folks online and in the public who are reading this agenda later on want to, they can quickly just go directly to that CEDS, as it's called, and learn a little bit more about what it is we're doing. As a brief reminder, having economic development priorities at the city level that align with the CEDS allow us to be much more competitive with our grant funding requests. As we move forward with things like our footbridge, our wastewater line, and our water line. So tying those to our economic development goals and those of the region is something that's going to make us a much stronger application, much stronger applicant as we start to apply for those grants. We also decided at just the last week in that meeting with that EDC that we'll be developing a SWOT analysis. So we'll be looking at the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats related to each of those priorities. What strengths does the city currently have? What are the weaknesses associated with each of those priorities? Are there opportunities that we could capitalize on? And what are the threats that could face us? These could be liability issues. These could be financial issues if we were to take on one or more of the potential projects that fall under those priorities. We want to make sure that's consistent with our framework for evaluating the committee's emerging priorities, and of course, through strengthening the city's position for future infrastructure funding opportunities too. As you can see, really everything comes back to that, and I want to make sure that we're creating as many lines as we can to be competitive for those grants. Along those lines, we also discussed urban renewal. And one of the things, the primary discussion of the EDC was to provide some guidance for the city council as it returns to this discussion in the next month or two, looking at if we do form a urban renewal agency, should it be the city council that serves as the board of that agency, or should it be a separate group of individuals? More on that at our work session, just providing that for you now as an update. We're also a little bit on the community and operational coordination front. A lot of great collaboration between staff, LOC, and the mayor on getting food choices figured out, getting our timing figured out for the small cities meeting. I regret that I was not able to attend, but I do understand it was an excellent meeting that we had. Thank you very much to Dawn for helping to coordinate the food organization on that, as well as the mayor's sheets to make sure that that event went well and that we represented the city. And it sounds like there were some really great outcomes from that meeting that we're actually going to fold into some of our future discussions. On the flagpole project, we'll be hearing a little bit about that more this evening. Worked with the mayor and public works and accounting staff to coordinate the completion of that new flagpole project in advance of the September 11th event that's coming up. And then finally, I've directed and coordinated work with Pacific Office Automation. I've delegated Mark to align schedules with their installation team, who are scheduled now to install the security cameras at the city park and the water treatment plant. So that is underway per council's directive during the budget discussion. That concludes my report. Are there any questions on any of that?
There was a lot of information there. Yeah.
Thank you, TJ.
Absolutely. Yeah, it was a busy month. And I want to just emphasize again, our team is working like a well-oiled machine. I could not be more proud of how we have come together to make this city look good and operate well over this past year. Major kudos to Mark and Dawn. And with that, we can move on to the Public Works report. I'll again provide that just for the benefit of the council and the community. So Mark mentioned that his wife is going to be having some surgery on October 2nd, and he's going to be taking some time off between the 2nd and the 9th. Following that, Jake will be out on the 12th and 13th for a medical procedure. They have been keeping me well informed on these, and we're coordinating all of the requirements for Public Works. So the message that I want to send is that everything is fully under control. There is no gaps in service, and it's important that our folks take the time that they need to take care of themselves. There was a pipe break on the 3rd, and that was in the water treatment plant. Y'all may have heard, and you'll likely see in the next payroll report too. There was a lot of overtime that we had to pay that was well needed, and we were able to get that repaired, as well as having staff stay late and over the weekend as well during that week to produce more water. We got really low during that point in time, so it was a little concerning, but we were able to manage it. On the 4th, a plumber did come out and complete a permanent repair, and then that repair had a pinhole leak, so they had to come back again and make a final repair to fix that mistake, but that was done. And then Mark and his team did have some folks from Harrisburg come out. They removed the membranes and cleaned those from both cells. So in addition to making that repair, the plant is operating as efficiently as it possibly can at this time. We did receive the new sampler from Hatch for the wastewater treatment influence side. and that was installed recently. So as Mark notes in his report, that is working significantly better. They also completed their annual maintenance on the lift station generator. So this is to ensure that if the power goes out, the wastewater will continue to operate. They're also planning and scheduling their annual maintenance on the lift station pumps. And one thing I'll mention for both the water and wastewater is I've asked Mark to identify a monthly, quarterly, and annual calendar, depending on the part or component for each of those systems, and have it calendarized on the Outlook as well as in the plant, so that they have a periodic maintenance schedule to review all of the parts. This is just to be sure that we're not addressing things at the 11th hour, and that we know what the problems are at those scheduled maintenance intervals. There's also the new projector, as y'all can see. I think that looks a little better than it did last time. Thank you very much, Don, for not only recommending that we replace it, but just getting on it and getting it done and getting a new projector in place. So the Public Works folks installed that. Again, good coordination between the team. Had the flag poles delivered, the old flagpole setup removed, and they're working to remove the light pole in front of the city hall too, and planning to place the 3 new flagpoles again in advance of the September 11th event. As I alluded to earlier, and Mark clarifies on the date range, the new cameras for the water plant and the park will be installed next week, or actually this week. Yeah, they're running together, I swear. Yeah, this week. That is great, and definitely a very welcome update for the city security. Mark knows there's nothing to report on equipment at the moment except for those maintenance schedules that he'll be moving forward with over these next couple of weeks and months. So more on that for the council, likely at a work session at a future date. Any questions on the Public Works report?
Doesn't look like it.
Okay. And Dawn, I'll hand it over to you. You're here with us tonight. Why don't you go ahead and give your finance report?
A lot of it is repeat. You did cover on the audit piece as well as Cassell. They had a few things that they did have to come back and request today that they forgot to request initially, but we got to them today. They should have everything in order to move forward on the Cassell implementation. And Springbrook has been very cooperative on getting us reporting as well that we can't access ourselves. So they've been very helpful in the process. As far as the dissolution of court, the one thing I would add there, I did make contact with Chris, can't remember his last name. He's the court administrator for the Benton County Circuit Court, who is going to be assuming some of our cases, so that TJ and I can meet with them hopefully in October at some point and start discussing how that's going to proceed. He did say that they have their counsel looking into it right now on how to proceed on their end. It's actually the first time that it sounds like that he's had to do a dissolution of a court. So we're kind of all new in this and we're working together through it. But he is aware that we want to meet with him on that and find out more information on how to move forward. And then Judge Blake will be here late September, and I'll also touch base with him again. I've gone through a lot of the older records, started getting them prepared, making sure we have all our little ducks in a row, sorting them by year as well as alphabetically, making sure cases that are closed are appropriately filed away, and cases that are still open, that way they can review them for, potential takeover when we close our court. I don't know how that's going to work yet, so we'll see. But that's all I have. Yeah.
Any questions for Don? All right. We'll move on. Okay, next on the agenda is the consent agenda. That is in your packet. That will include the minutes and everything else. We cover what the consent agenda.
So Don, given that you're with us tonight, I'd like you to carry us through just basic pieces that you think are relevant for the council to know about. You don't need to go line by line, but what I typically do is I'll scroll through this slowly and then let council, as they're reading through, just kind of hear us make comments that might be useful. So really just what they're looking at in front of them and if there's anything to mention.
No, for sure. So treasurer's report, just, this is a very, zoomed out, basically all of our expenses through the month, and what the bank totals were, after the adjustments for the month. So any receipts in and withdrawals out. So that is referenced there as well. And then we have our funds, all the balances on those after the deductions, at the end of the month. So you'll see on page 17, we have all of our major funds here that were affected by that month, with the transactions and what the ending balance was. Transaction journals are GL, so any GL entry that is entered, and this is everything from a utility payment to adjustments we have to make in the system, which we try to make very few of. Mainly transfers in, transfers out, things of that nature. If we get money in from the county for tax turnovers, we'll have to enter those manually. They don't flow over. But most of this is APs and utility billing. So for transaction journal, then we have our funds, once again, the beginning balance, any revenues, the expenses in that fund. So you can kind of see a zoomed out version of what we've gone through. Deposits will always equal withdrawals on that back page as well on page 25. Those are things we look for to make sure that we have everything in line. Our APs, so page 26 and 27 are referencing the checks that we'll be signing tonight. Should they all be approved? And in the packet as well after this, since we're going through it, though I will mention it, the Oregon Cascades West Council of Governments is a check that we kind of have on hold until we review whether or not that's something we want to proceed with. That is in the check packet tonight as well. The AP paid, these are ones that we pay ACH, so they're auto withdrawal payments, payroll, CIS, or insurance. Basically are very standard monthly charges that we have. Then we have our credit card statement. This is typically what I provide. If you want to see something different or need more details, let me know. But this sorts it by the transactions and by name. I'm the big spender apparently. So all the flagpole parts, anything we get on Amazon. So all of those orders go through me. So I'm the big spender here. But if you ever need more details on those, let me know. We do have 2 different sets of meeting minutes tonight. We have August 10th as well as July 27th. Because I noticed that with the last council meeting primarily being on the budget, we didn't cover those. So I have both of those in there for approval tonight and review. And then on the back side, so page 36 is that Oregon Cascades West Council of Government invoice that I was referencing, so that council can decide whether or not that's something they want to move forward with. If the services that they're providing they feel are worth paying that monthly dues, and it's about a little over $1,300. So.
Thank you, Don. Any comments, questions, about the consent agenda? I know that you still kind of feeling.
I know there's a lot of paper.
That's fair.
Are we ever gonna get to a point where we're starting to phase Chuck out?
I'll let TJ answer that question. I think eventually, yes, but it's gonna be a little bit longer, I assume.
I'm sure.
Can you repeat the question?
I was asking if there's a to a point where we're gonna start phasing Chuck folks out.
So I guess where Mark needs to be in order for that to happen might be.
Yeah.
Sorry, I think your microphone might be just a little choppy there.
Chuck Schultz, our DRC.
Oh,
Counselor Ray is wanting to know at what point we'll be phasing Chuck out, and Mark will be able to assume that role as well, probably, is my.
thank you so much.
Okay.
Yeah, so we have 2 contracts with Chuck Schultz. On the wastewater side, the answer to your question is soon. Mark is now certified to operate that plant at the level 1. He does need to move forward and complete level 2 as well. We have a slightly upgraded plant. That's going to be happening in the very near future. He is full steam ahead on completing that. I would expect him to be really out of that contract and really just as an advisor role, definitely before the end of the year. Or by the end of the year. With regard to, and that was actually the water treatment plant, excuse me, I'm mixing them. So the water treatment plant, he has a little more time to go for the level 2. But for on the wastewater side, Mark already has what he needs to operate the wastewater. So we could be, by the end of the year, done with the wastewater and probably keeping Chuck for another year on the water.
I knew Mark was getting his certifications and where he can start getting to where he needed to be, and we were just gonna, I don't know, I guess that's a contract, it's 1,500 a month. I didn't know if we like, this Chuck, or not Chuck, or this Mark got what he needed, we would be reducing that monthly, like say by $500. So, or if we're just gonna go with a complete cut off.
I think that's a nuanced position, that there's some historical context with that position from a regulatory standpoint that I would not feel comfortable. I would feel more comfortable keeping Chuck Schultz on as like a consultant, part-time basis. That's our water.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah,
Maybe this 1,500
right. No, I think that should be looked at
as we
start. Yeah.
as we progress.
That's a good question. If he's dropping off half of it, is he gonna have?
Although, I mean, we can talk to Michelle over at the city.
Yeah.
That's.
And Chuck as well. I
You know,
mean,
we get to know that.
yeah.
I know Chuck's
Yeah.
still doing a lot of the reporting for us as well. I've seen him still producing a good number of the reporting. I think that Mark's probably working with him on it. I can't really speak to that, but I still see him sending reports in and he's CCing me on them. So that's another piece of it too, that he's definitely working.
Yeah, thank you, Don, for that piece. So Chuck is still handling that. There are about 20 to 30 reports total that get submitted annually. Those are ones that I coordinate with Chuck on. Mark is still very new at a lot of this stuff. And so he is not quite at the point where he's ready to submit those. It's only been in this last several months that he started to take on a few of those reports. Some of them he has fully under his purview, but most of them are still ones that Chuck submits. Those are primarily for the water treatment plant, the ones that are pretty important and detailed. So as I was saying, I would expect Chuck to be in the same capacity that he has been for the water treatment plant at least for another year. With regard to wastewater, that's one where I think we could see a corresponding decrease in Chuck's work that again corresponds with the increases in pay that we're providing to Mark. That is ultimately the intent of those 50-cent increases. So I would expect to be working with Michelle over the next couple of months after coordinating with Chuck on what he feels is an appropriate change in level of work. And then bringing that before council for an update. That may be something that we include in a supplemental budget when we do bring that to council in a couple of months from now, I would expect.
I have a question.
Right.
Who or what is Tumbleweed Tap House?
Oh, thank you. So Tumbleweed Tap House is the Silos gas station owner, and they're looking to convert that structure into a project that had been submitted for approval some time ago under the last CA's direction. There are several things that we needed to circle back and get right. And so we're working with the owner and applicant on that as quickly as we can. I've allowed them to move forward with their Benton County building permits concurrently with the city's land use review. They've only got a few more steps to go, so largely on stormwater and parking, but we're very close. But that's who that is.
All right, changing topics.
Thank you.
What do we get out of Oregon Cascades West Council of Governments?
Oh, we'll talk about that.
Okay.
Like, you see administrators hold them.
No, kidding. Yeah, we'll definitely talk about
Great.
it. We're gonna talk about that.
Seems more applicable to spend $1,500 on a water person.
So Oregon Cascade West Council of Government is the next. Perfect. So it has its own agenda. item.
So we have to approve the consent agenda first.
But we need to do that.
Yeah, I was a little blended in if you can.
So, I will entertain a motion.
You're saying it's including the minutes from.
With those meetings, yeah. Back in the bus, so. Electrical interference lines change. So. Water.
Or on football, it's strength.
Any most water consent agenda?
Yes, the motion.
So, are we paying a maintenance fee for cameras to the Pacific office on the
We have a licensing fee.
licensing fee? And do they provide a cloud storage for some of that, or is that? all-
That's my understanding, correct, TJ?
Yes,
For
that
the-
is correct. For the camera recordings, that's a cloud storage that is available to law enforcement as well as to us. And that is stored for a minimum of 30 days. And I know that we can access it afterwards as well if we absolutely needed to.
Do we have download capabilities to hard storage?
Yes, we can download what we like. Obviously, as you know, video would be a large data
Sure.
load, but if we ever have a need to download any of that footage, we can do that, yes.
I mean, I think it'd be worthwhile to buy a gigabyte or terabyte, excuse me, a couple terabyte drive that we can have if we ever need to.
We could expand our storage within OneDrive to unlimited if we wanted to. It would not be a significant cost, and that would allow us to just keep those in perpetuity if that's something that we wanted to do and council wanted to consider in the future.
It's something we don't have to do now. I'm just curious to make sure we have the options available. I mean,
Good question.
Specific mention in there, specific response.
So, yeah, so some of the stuff is billed for the printer. And then we have base charges for the printer on top of the lease of the printer. And then we have the lease of the cameras. And now we're also gonna have a separate lease for the park cameras. And based on the address and the information they provide on the bottom of the invoice is who it goes to, but they're two separate entities. They have two separate addresses and billing information.
they're
Yep.
both in Albany.
What was it?
I said they're both in Albany.
No, well, maybe the people that are servicing what we have, but the main offices I'm paying to know.
I think they're in Eugene, right, Don?
Well, like the billing, like I was saying, isn't going there. I mean, when I remit the, invoices, is what it's based off of, for if it's
Yeah.
incorporated or just Pacific Office Automation.
That makes sense. Our guy Calvin, I think he's out of the Eugene office, but they're a national company, so they're kind of all over the place.
So feeling the love here on this.
Just making sure.
There's a lot to review.
Okay, I'll make a motion to accept the consent agenda as written.
Second.
All right, any comments? Questions, concerns before we go? No? Okay, let's do it. Councilor Ray.
Yes.
Councilor Witten.
Yes.
Councilor Meyer.
Yes.
That was a. Councilor Bell.
Yes.
Councilor Evans.
Yes.
Councilor Cuthbertson.
Yes.
Thank you. All right, moving on here, the next item on the agenda is the Aroosa Cascades West local government's dues for fiscal year 27. It's due on page 36 of our packet. There must be somebody that hasn't been here for 10 weeks.
I know. Trying to update this stuff is ridiculous.
Yep. Hold on.
If we're paying for them to be aware of things, and
Strike one.
So TJ, do we not have an IT agreement with them? to maintain our
do.
computers? Okay.
Yes, so I'll return to that at next month's meeting. I'm giving a little bit of time to their IT staff as they have a bereavement leave that they're on right now. We're pressing them for a little bit more information about the services that they're providing. One of those services is the one that y'all are most keenly aware of, which is your email support. But we also have other IT needs as well that we need to discuss with them and determine whether or not they have the capacity to continue to support us. But our IT services agreement with them is contingent upon these dues being continued to be paid. My hope was that I'd have that discussion with Jacob before today's meeting, but again, there was that bereavement leave. I don't think, obviously, that they're going to kick us off their platform if we wait until next month. My strong recommendation to council is that you postpone payment on this service until I have clear direction and guidance from them on what they're able to commit to with regard to our IT services contract. I do see this in Councilor Evans has her hand up as well.
Go ahead.
Am I the only one that still cannot access their email?
No.
I also have no access.
Okay. Just wanted to put that out there.
It's also about responsiveness. When we ask questions like the email question, for example, I have not received what I would consider to be the level of responsiveness, 24 to 48 hours solution. Just as small background, when I was in college, I worked for 4 years in the IT department for the University of Oregon. And so I'm familiar with that industry and what the expectations are. And I would need to see them commit to maybe a little bit higher level of quality of service. I think I mentioned this before, but they've started what they call the Community Services Consortium. So they're supporting housing and homelessness and other community support within their organization. And so that's caused their IT team in particular to split some of their efforts, hire more people, take on more tasks. I don't know if that's related. I do need to learn a little bit more from Jacob Lynn, who is our contact guy with them, before I make a recommendation to council. But I think you can get a sense of my feedback tonight on how I feel about it at the moment.
You and me both. Yeah.
I will say, so with getting Grace set up, I have a different contact. I started using internally over there. I've just gotten a better response overall. Rather than going through their IT ticket system, the help desk, and then Ryan is who I've been emailing, and he was very helpful getting Grace set up today. Even I think within a half hour to an hour of emailing him, he did get back to us and get some things sorted out over there. So he's a pretty good contact over there. I just don't think he has the level of expertise or ability to do the same work that Jacob does. So he's pretty responsive, but the level that we need, for like the emails and things, I think is where we're lacking.
Thanks for mentioning that, Don, because I do want to give a shout out to Ryan. He's been pretty good. But one of the big issues is that we need to defederate. We need to get rid of GoDaddy. That was one of the first things that we were supposed to do when they came on board. We have not completed that yet. So all of you who do log into your email, you likely still see that GoDaddy sort of intermediary wall that you have that comes up, and you have to log in through their platform. I really want to kill that off, and I want to go directly through the Office 365 administration tool. That's one thing, for example, that Jacob and only Jacob would really be able to support us on. So I do want to give him some time to meet with us and let us know, are we missing something? Is there something he needs from us? Before council does decide to move forward with this. I do see Councilor Cuthbertson has her hand up.
Go ahead.
I just wanted to mention that I still have not been able to get on any of the COG meetings due to my password issues, which they were going to handle several months ago when I talked to them. So we haven't even been attending any meetings for probably over a year, just due to being able to connect with them. So that's been pretty frustrating.
Thanks for raising that, Councilor Cuthbertson. That's actually outside of their job for the city. That's actually part of their internal job for board members, which Councilor Cuthbertson is one of those members. I'm surprised to hear that they have not resolved that yet. And yeah, thank you for sharing that.
And so the COG, it's more than the IT services that they provide us. They provide other services like VA services. I'm trying to remember what else they provide the city besides those two things.
What is CED?
I don't know what CED are.
I can reach out to. That's
On the invoice.
Yeah.
Yeah, those are the only things that we pay for right now that are part of our standard services. As you can see, there's the general dues, and I would, Don, if you would, I would like you to reach out, have them at minimum correct the contact information. This is 2 city administrators ago. And then secondly, I'd like a little bit more detail, unless I'm missing it. Nope. I'd like a little more detailed clarification on what the difference is between the general dues. I believe CED might be comprehensive economic development dues. They are the organization that also doubles as the local development district that writes the comprehensive economic development strategy that we talked a little bit ago about, but it's not a service that they provide to the city. It's something that they're legally required to do as the economic development district for our region. Then they're directed by the Economic Development Administration at the federal level to do that. I don't know if that's what that is. I would like a little clarification, Dawn, if you could. Transportation dues, again, I need to know a little bit more on what that means, and special project dues. These are not large numbers, but collectively we're talking close to $1,500. I don't know if that echoes any of the same questions or concerns that council has, but from the administrative level, I think I'd like personally a little bit more detail.
Yes. Definitely.
Yeah, I know I had reached out regarding the address and the update on the CA, but I will ask them to provide a little more detail about what those charges are.
Awesome.
Is it consistently this $1,360?
It goes up every year. I think last time it was like
It's
in
not like
the
it-
low 12. Yeah, it's like
That's-
each year it goes up.
Do they also invoice us for other things when we ask for them?
Not that I've seen other than the IT charge.
Do we use their services at all besides IT? Now, I know that we have switched to them from the IT service to go use them, but what else are we?
I don't personally reach out to them for anything, so I'll see what they say they provide.
Yeah. I mean, they haven't to us before, they do a lot of like development work in the community, like Meals on Wheels and I just really don't understand, have a clear path forward what they're actually providing us.
Yeah.
That could be clarified, that may be helpful in determining whether or not we want to pay the dues and continue to move forward.
Yeah, we'll reach out.
Yeah, I mean, it's I'm just uncertain. I've never been
It
clear.
would be nice to have her.
Would be nice to have, yeah.
Big picture, spend 16,000.
Was this an annual due?
Those are annual.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh.
No.
That's, I'm way more agreeable about it.
I find a balance due for the month.
Not for fiscal year.
I know it makes it look like.
No, we still need to find out what.
Yeah, but how is that affecting the IT service that we have? If we did not renew our contract or pay the dues, what does that look like from an IT perspective? And what would be the next step to find another company that would be able to service us appropriately?
Thanks for that question. So I did ask staff to identify other IT services that are out there. The costs associated with those services are substantially higher than what we're currently paying with the COG. I believe with the COG, we're spending $20 per computer per month, or excuse me, $40 per computer per month. But one thing to make clear is that I think that there are a lot of additional things related to IT that we also need to have with the city. And that $1,500 could be incorporated into a larger contract with another IT service, in addition to what we're paying the COG, that would cover roughly about the amount of what we would pay with another service. If we got rid of the COG, that is, if we did not pay our dues, being contingent upon the dues, we would lose our IT service with them. But that's part of the reason that I've been identifying what the alternatives are. And I will be bringing that before the work session in just a couple of weeks to look at what those options are, how much they charge, and what you get from them. Those are private sector services. And so one thing you can note is that they have very clear contractual obligations that they include when they go into an agreement with a city or an organization. I very much would like to encourage council to consider those other options. And if we waited a month to pay this, that might give you the opportunity to review what those are. And then we can make a decision from there. I do think that we could fit another service into the costs associated with the combined IT services and dues that we currently pay to the COG if we did decide to move away from them and onto another service. There are no other add-on services that we currently purchase from the COG. So all we have is the general dues, the annual dues that every organization pays. And the one and only thing that we've added on is that IT service. So we wouldn't be losing any other contingent service if we did choose not to continue with them in this capacity.
Great, thank you, PJ.
I would be curious what, and I don't know if, Don, if you've already talked with the city of Harrisburg and the city of Junction City to see what, or who they use for IT services. I'd be curious.
I have not, but I can note that and reach out.
Do we lose the COG services as of a week from now on the due date, or is there some kind of grace period?
It sounds like TJ needs there's clarification on that.
So what they've said here that it's due on the 31st, but I have no issue reaching out to Ryan and just letting him know that the council has some questions that we would like them to answer, and that, you know, the next council meeting is going to be at the end of September. And so we'll be able to have that approval by then. But if I were to let him know council would like to see those responses before paying the dues, I feel confident that they're not just going to kick us out. Even though that due date does say the 31st, I personally would like a little bit more time to meet with Jacob about the IT service arrangement and how we can fix some of that. And I'd also like a little bit more time to talk with council about the alternatives that are out there, so you have the full picture on what the options are.
PJ, to clarify, is that something you're going to do, or do you need me to reach out to somebody over there?
I would like for you to as we were discussing, I'd like for you to reach out regarding what these dues currently entail.
Correct, yeah.
I've already coordinated with Jacob, and the only reason we didn't meet last week again was because he was on leave. I'll be reaching back out to him to schedule some time to meet with him. I believe next week is when he'll be back. And then I should have an answer by the work session. So I'll take care of that piece, Dawn, reaching out to Jacob.
So, okay, just not, I don't need to mention anything about holding off on the payment and getting more information, correct? I'll get more information on the invoice, let me clarify, but you don't want me to
No,
mention anything about,
thanks. I'll reach out to Ryan, the executive director, and just let him know directly that we would like a little bit more time from council.
Okay, thank you.
For council to review those options and to
Okay,
understand
thank you.
better what we're paying for. Yeah, I'll take care of that.
Thank you.
Thank you. We appreciate the help. And Ryan's used to us asking for more information. Any other
And
questions? Go ahead. Go ahead.
in addition to reaching out to Harrisburg and Junction City, how about reaching out also to Adair and maybe Halsey to see who they use? They're closer in size.
Definitely make note of that. Thank you.
So, Dawn, this is a great task, I think, if we wanted to have Grace support us over this next week. I'd absolutely like to do that. I'd like to reach out to the cities that are within, 50 to 75 miles from us, the ones that we coordinate with often. One thing we can also do is I can handle this piece. I can reach out to the League of Oregon Cities and find out what small cities around our size do, because it's one thing to check in our region, but not all of us are the same shape and size. I'd love to know what the sub 1,000 population cities are doing for services. Is it something they are recommended from LOC? Do they do nothing? Do they hire locally? That might be some additional information that could be helpful.
Yeah, we can do that.
Great, thank you. Any other questions around that? Or we're going to revisit it next month, or as soon as the work session possible. Okay. All right, moving on. Next on the agenda is resolution 2026-10 revised. Page 37, 38 in the plan.
Thank you. You saw this during the last meeting when we approved the resolution to allow to authorize taxes with Benton County. There was one technical error in this, so I wanted to bring it back before council after resolving the technical error and make sure that we had this correct so that when the auditors receive it, we're in good shape. That was in the 407 fund. A few of the numbers were incorrectly added to this. So we've corrected that and brought it back before you for approval to get in front of the auditors. This is again to correct the budget from this past fiscal year. I'll go ahead and read this and then we can entertain any questions. So this is a resolution providing technical and clerical corrections to fiscal year 26-27 adopted budget. City staff identified certain technical, clerical, and reconciliation discrepancies within that adopted budget schedule that require correction to ensure there's consistency between resources and expenditures, primarily within interfund transfers. The corrections provided by this resolution do not establish new programs, nor do they increase appropriations, but they reduce or reconcile the amounts that are contained within the adopted budget. And that's key. We're not doing anything here that requires a supplemental budget. This is just reflecting what the intent of the council initially was, and I'll speak about that here. So all of this is exactly the same. Section 1, Fund 403, in the Water Reserve Fund. The transfers into Fund 403 in the budget is reduced to $12,000. We reduced that amount from $70,000 to $12,000 in order to help pay for some of the things like the generator, as well as the cameras that were added by council before the last meeting. And then also we reduced future expenditures reservation to 19,101. The one change in this resolution compared to when we looked at it on the 10th was the generator line within Fund 407 was reduced to 70,000. I had originally written 75,000, so that was, we wanted to make sure that that was correct. And reserve for future expenditures is reduced to 4,539. Fund 201, this is exactly the same as you saw. Appropriations reflected in Fund LB. Fund 201 LB 30 are reduced by $30 for locates. That's just ensuring that our totals are equal on both the revenues and expenses. And then number 4, so there were those 3 corrections. And then number 4, the effect of the corrections. These corrections authorized by this resolution are technical and clerical in nature. They do not increase appropriations within any city fund, except as expressly corrected herein. The fiscal year 26-27 budget adopted by resolution 2026-09 remains fully unchanged. And so those are the details there. We did want to just make that one little revision to ensure that everything is absolutely correct before we hand it over to the auditors, but nothing new or substantial is included here.
Any questions on that? Seems pretty clear. We ready? I need a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve resolution number 2026-10, a resolution providing technical and clerical corrections to the fiscal year 2026 through 2027 adopted budget.
Okay, any comments or questions before we vote? Okay, so we're gonna vote. Here we go. Councilor Ray. Yes. Councilor Williams.
Yes.
Councilor Myers.
Yes.
Councilor Felton.
Yes.
Councilor Evans.
Yes.
Councilor Cuthbertson.
Yes.
Thank you very much. Here you go.
All right.
Here we go there. Okay, moving on. Okay, this is RFP 2026-01. This is on pages 39 through 77.
Thank you, sir. So the number of pages definitely tells you the breadth of this. The first several pages actually are a bit more abridged, and I'll provide a little bit of detail here. So let me get over to that page really quickly here. This RFP really represents close to a year's worth of work. When I first came on board, the Longtom Watershed Council and our planning commission were expressing that we needed to get an RFP out the door right away. And we were going to do our in-water work now, essentially, this summer. One of the things that I asked for was that we work with the Army Corps of Engineers to extend that out a year. As you all know and approve, that is exactly what happened. And so that gave me the full year to look at 2 different RFPs that were integrally related. One is the raw water intake. So this one that I'm highlighting here, the raw water intake is directly related to the impoundment level or the water level after the dam comes out. It'll drop about 6 feet. As you've heard several times, we'd be sucking air if we did not have a new intake in place. The funds for the raw water intake have been raised exclusively by the Longtom Watershed Council to the tune of somewhere around $700,000. And that was part of the approved budget that we went through over a couple of weeks ago. The second piece of this is the $1.5 million that the city directly received from the state of Oregon. That is for the water system modernization. Because the water intake and the water modernization project both focus on the same system, it is a single system. And we need those to work in line together. So over this past year, I've consulted several highly educated and qualified engineers and individuals who can guide me on what the best approach here is. The first thought was that we could have 2 separate RFPs and potentially 2 separate teams. consultants, that is, working on each of the projects. But that is not the most prudent approach. You need a single organization who understands it from a systems perspective, a system thinker on the different pieces that go into the water modernization, the pieces that go into the water intake, and also one of their responsibilities directly called out within this RFP is that that firm clearly delineates which costs are being billed to which funding source. And this is part of the whole RFP. So what we've done is we've combined this into a single RFP. The consultant, the engineering firm that will be receiving this will be working on both pieces simultaneously. A little bit of detail on this, and this has been brought before the 1135 Technical Advisory Committee, on which we have 3 very competent engineers, as well as our own Councillor Williams and Mayor Sheets, as well as Longtime Watershed Council on that committee. Just basic boilerplate of who we are and who we're working with. The city and the Army Corps of Engineers are the 2 key organizations, alongside also the Longtime Watershed Council. I am the city contact, and so all questions, comments, and requests for information will be sent to me directly. We, in the table of contents, have provided instructions to the proposers. We've provided background and objectives on the system and what it is that we're looking to achieve. We're also providing the scope of professional services, the minimum qualifications, as well as the proposal requirements and the evaluation of consultant selection. And then also the appendices here. The scope of professional services have been moved into an exhibit, which we have done at the guidance of one of the technical advisory committee members and seconded and supported unanimously by the full committee to keep the main information at a high level front and center, and then the really dense information that gets into a lot of detail, engineering level detail, further down in the document. Also in the appendices, we're providing a couple of documents that are very valuable for proposers as they submit their request for proposals. One is the December 2022 Civil West DPB feasibility study. So Civil West back in 2022 prepared a feasibility study that looked at the different ways that we could address the disinfectant byproducts. Also in 2022, the River Design Group was requested by Longtime Watershed Council, not by the city, but by the Longtime Watershed Council, to look at how we might approach the water intake redesign. This was a technical memorandum. It was not a guidance document. It was not anything else that got into really great detail. But this is being provided as planning level information for the proposers. There's the January 2026 decision document that was presented before council, and you all provided your concurrent approval to move forward with the proposed full removal of the mill race and fish ladder alongside the dam itself. That document is being provided to proposers. We'll also be providing the existing drawings and mapping that are available. Much of that has come from the 2008 installation of the water treatment plant that is currently there now. That's when that was built. That includes also in Appendix E, the hydrology and hydraulic technical information of the current system. So there's what they call H&H, hydrology and hydraulics. Some of that may be provided by the Army Corps of Engineers, but also we have some of our own. And then those proposers will be able to review that information and determine if that is helpful for them in proposing their recommended solution for how they would complete this work. We'll also provide a sample professional services agreement so they understand what that would look like if they were successful, as well as some additional reference materials that are requested. So I'll go over some of the boilerplate information. We do have general instructions to the proposers, which include that they would be working collaboratively with the city, its engineer of record, as well as the Army Corps of Engineers Portland District, alongside the regulatory agencies, primarily Drinking Water Services under Oregon Health Authority, and other project partners to evaluate the design and implementation of the raw water intake and the municipal water treatment system. They are responsible for becoming familiar with those requirements. Everything is a public record. The proposal preparation and costs, we are not paying for any of their costs. So they'll probably spend substantial time and money on their end to prepare these proposals, and this simply states that we're not reimbursing that. Questions and clarifications that they have will come directly to me, and then all those responses to those questions will be provided in summary through the addenda process. So we'll post an addendum, which you'll see the schedule on just here in a few minutes. They'll be responsible for ensuring that they review that addenda and incorporate that into their final proposal. There's, of course, the proposal submission and the closing date. And then, again, public records and reservation of rights. So the city has the right to reject any or all proposals. We can cancel or modify this RFP. We can waive minor informalities or irregularities. We can also request clarification or additional information from the proposers. And we will be conducting interviews with one or more proposers. We do expect to conduct interviews with the top three. That was the determination of the 1135 committee. We will also reserve the right to negotiate the final scope of services and contract terms with the highest ranked proposer. And we also reserve the right, of course, to award a contract when determined that it's in the best interest of the city. Here you see the schedule of events. So this has been edited to allow 6 weeks for the proposal to be submitted to the city. It was originally 30 days because we really had a need to get this moving quickly, but we were able to extend this to 6 weeks without changing the notice of intent to award. What that means is that the committee is going to have to be a little quicker and nimbler on its end. One point of guidance that I would request from the council is that when we do review the proposals, we request that a smaller technical group of the technical advisory committee gets together separately. So really our engineers and myself to discuss the proposals that are submitted. And that is largely because from the point that proposals are due on 10/9 to the point that we're scheduling interviews, it's only a 10-day period of time. So I want to strongly recommend that we have just a couple of folks without reaching a quorum of that committee, just 3 individuals will get together to evaluate those proposals and schedule those interviews. Those interviews would happen with the 1135 committee in full. So 10/19 was pegged to the date of that October meeting with the technical advisory committee. That is the time in which we would have a clear rubric, essentially, and set of questions on a 1 to 5 scale for each question on the quantitative front to review each one of those proposals. And then we would intend to make our decision that day or shortly thereafter with the intent to award to the most successful proposer on 10/26. I want to remind folks, we've talked about this several times over the past couple of months, but it's worth raising again, that we are not allowed to consider the cost of their services under Oregon law as part of this request for proposal. We can only consider qualifications. This is a qualifications-based proposal. So once we get into contract negotiation, that is when we'll actually have the opportunity under Oregon law to consider what the costs are. But because this is a matter of public health and safety, we are only legally allowed to consider the qualifications of the team itself. However, one thing I have included in this proposal is that we need to remain within our budget. And so that includes the amount for the intake, the amount for the water modernization project, and a healthy contingency to really accommodate any unpredictable or unpredicted changes that could happen. And these folks know that is the case. And so here in this proposal, I've asked them to consider costs once we get to that point in negotiation. The successful applicant would need to firm up some costs at about a 30% certainty, 60% and 90%. And that means 30% of the project is fully nailed down and clear. 60% and 90%, those numbers will become more accurate as we move along. But under no circumstances are we going to allow for costs to go over our current budget. So that was really hammered home within this document. I'll spend a little bit of time here talking with you about the project background, objectives, and just the overview here. So of course we need to complete this by the 2027 in-water work window. That will include the raw water intake and the water system modernization. So this is essentially two projects with separate origins, separate funding sources, and administrative requirements, but they are technically interrelated. Decisions concerning raw water withdrawal, pumping, and quality need to be considered with regard to both of these projects that are moving alongside simultaneously. So we need to select a single multidisciplinary engineering consultant that is capable of evaluating and designing the two projects as components of an integrated municipal water system. What's nice about this is if we were to have two teams working separately, they would have to coordinate with one another too. And that slows things down. And it also introduces a lot of opportunity for mistakes. We don't have the time nor the budget for that. So that is the reason, the primary reason that our technical experts on the 1135 committee felt that it was best to move forward with a combined RFP. Their job, once they're hired, is to review available studies, existing system information, current operating conditions, all the regulatory requirements and the available funding, as well as use that information and exercise their best independent professional judgment in developing the recommendations that will be put forward for this project. We also provide some information on the project schedule. And one thing to note for you all is that the Portland district at the ACE, USACE, they're still putting together their project schedule. I'll be meeting with them next week. I'll be joined by Jed Call from the Long Tom Watershed Council. They're going to be giving us certainty at this point on what their budget and timeline is. And then that will be provided to the proposers through the addenda. And just to come back up to the schedule very quickly, I didn't touch on this specifically. Here, that addenda will be going out on 9/18, which is a couple of weeks before the proposals are due. So we'll be able to provide that exact timeline from the Portland District Army Corps of Engineers well before they are expected to have their proposals into the city. They'll be looking at the previous intake evaluation as well. So that technical memorandum that was developed in 2022 by the River Design Group really threw out two potential options from a very high level. One was to relocate the intake, and the other one was to extend the existing intake. We're leaving it up to the engineer to think about both of those, consider whether they want to move forward with one of them or propose something entirely different. So that document is being provided again as a planning level foundational document for our proposers to understand what has been considered. But there's also been significant changes in the scope of this project, not the least of which is removing the full mill race and fish ladder. So they may very well come up with a different solution. We go into a little more detail on the water system modernization project as well. That, as you all know, is to remove the disinfectant byproducts and the total trihalomethanes and haliocetic acids that continue to cause us issues. And that's the direct reason for the quarterly reports that get sent out in the water bills. What's nice is that when this project is complete, we will no longer have those problems. So we're very much looking forward to that. The study that was provided in 2022 recommended a combination of improvements, most of which will be retained, but it is up to this consultant to determine which ones should be implemented. And then all of that needs to go before Oregon Health Authority Drinking Water Services and their engineering team, who will be approving all of these changes before they get implemented. So we will get not only the recommendation from the consultant, but also the formal nod from our regulators to move forward. I talk extensively in this RFP about the relationship between the projects. Again, because they're highly interrelated, decisions concerning the pretreatment, chemical dosing, pumping controls, and treatment, they may affect the appropriate configuration of the raw water intake itself. So that is why having one team looking at this as a single proposal is ideal. So their responsibility is to evaluate the two projects as components, again, of an integrated water system. And they will identify opportunities to coordinate design, investigations, equipment, controls, and our construction sequencing, which will need to correlate directly with the in-water work of the Portland District as they remove the dam itself. One thing I make very clear is that these projects will not be merged for financial purposes. So their team will need, and they make it very clear here, they will need to delineate between the costs that are being billed to the $1.5 million for the water modernization versus the costs that are being billed to the water intake specifically and its relocation as it relates directly to the dam removal. We also provide some project objectives. So again, we make clear those are our different funding sources. The regulatory requirements can be different on both of those, as well as the implementation needs. And we need the consultant to recognize and evaluate those technical relationships between the projects and develop recommendations that are going to support a reliable system that continues to operate as a whole. The raw water intake objectives, we go into detail about what we expect from that. And there are several components related to that. And then we separate that out from the water system modernization objectives and the several items that are spelled out there. We talk a little bit more about the integrated project objectives. They'll evaluate the relationships that are material between those two projects, including the source water itself, the pumping, treatment, processing, and the dosing, as well as monitoring controls and interconnected system elements. We're also going to be updating the computer system. One thing that we talked about in the committee is that computer was installed in 2008, which in IT terms is ancient. And so that will be updated as part of this process. There's project delivery objectives as well. They'll be expected to exercise independent professional judgment, put their stamp on these projects and get them before the right regulators. They'll also be coordinating very closely. So one of the things that we'll be looking at, and you'll see in the scoring criteria, is that they need to be able to communicate effectively and coordinate well with city staff, the engineer of record, the Portland District, the Oregon Health Authority, the Oregon Water Resources Department, other regulatory agencies, and other project partners, including the county. So we're looking for not just engineers, but also engineers that can play well with others in the sandbox. We'll need them to develop practical and constructible recommendations. So it's cool to come up with a cool pie in the sky concept, but it needs to be something that we can maintain over the long term, that we can do within our current capital funding, and that also considers schedule constraints. One of the other things that we note is it's not just those pieces, but also the long-term operations and maintenance. We need to make sure that not only is it reasonable with the capital budget, but also reasonable with the time and effort and budget that the city has to continue to operate the system. So if they suggest something that's really cool and awesome, but it would triple the costs of operation, that is not feasible for us. And that's that number 5 piece that I was just talking about. So it needs to coordinate with our long-term maintenance. And they'll also need to provide the city with sufficient information at major decision points, which will be brought before council at those times, so that we can understand those alternatives, the costs, the risks, the trade-offs, and the recommended actions. This is the primary reason that I have adamantly created this 1135 committee, and appreciate the council's support on that, because we need technical experts who can read what these engineers are providing. I am not an engineer. And we need people who can make recommendations to the council, so that when you're being presented with these options, you have experts who are supporting you in your decisions. We provide also a level of minimum qualifications that they must meet. So first, they have to be legally qualified to work in the state. The project manager needs to be responsible professional engineer, appropriate license in Oregon to provide the services themselves. So it can't just be the firm is qualified. Also, if they have sub-consultants, those sub-consultants also need to be qualified to do the work. They need to have demonstrated experience with municipal water infrastructure. We ask for a minimum of 3 to 5 examples as part of the proposal. They also need to possess the internally or through their sub-consultants, the technical capabilities necessary to perform that full scope of services. They also have to have the organizational capacity and the ability to fit it within their own project schedules. So we'll be expecting them to demonstrate that within their proposal itself. We also include a number of proposal requirements. So that includes a cover letter. They need to demonstrate their understanding of the project. They need to give a clear, high level, but appropriate amount of detail in their technical approach. And also tell us about their project team and who will be serving what roles, especially if it's not a single firm, but they're farming some of this out to sub-consultants. That's very common in this industry, but we need to know who those folks are. We need to know their relevant experience, and this is where I say that they need to have 3 to 5 examples of projects that they've completed that are similar. And then they need to tell us a little bit about project risks. One of the things I note here is that the city encourages a candid identification of uncertainty. We're not going to penalize them for identifying those risks. And in fact, one of the things that we want to promote and encourage is that they do identify them now and let us know what those could be. They're the experts, not us. If there's something we're missing, we need to know. The communication and coordination piece, they need to include that, tell us how they're going to do that. They need to tell us a little bit about innovation and value. So what are their innovative approaches to technology and the sequencing, and how is that going to provide a long-term as well as a value in the short term for our capital costs? And then the capacity and schedule. The evaluation and consultant selection. So they'll be evaluated by a city selection committee. And I left that broad because I, again, am asking for the council's support to have a smaller team of just engineers review the qualifications and then select the top 3 firms that will be coming for interviews before the full 1135 committee. We will conduct interviews of the highest ranked proposers. We do expect to select the top 3. Here's the evaluation criteria. So 20 points to project understanding, 20 points to their technical approach, 10 points to their project team and qualifications, 15 points to their relevant experience, 10 points to communication and coordination, 10 points to innovation and value engineering, capacity and schedule 10, and reference and past performance. And I noticed there was a little jump, and I'll fix that once we move through this, but I'm just noticing that right now. These 3 numbers just need to come up one line. 10 points to capacity and schedule, 5 points to references and past performance. So while we're looking for those references and past performance, it is the lowest level on the qualifications or on the criteria. These criterion were adjusted pretty significantly by the committee.
Our printout says 5 for innovation and engineering.
I'm sorry?
Our printout says 5 for innovation and value engineering.
And project team and
Page 52, there's 2 separate RFPs, so it could be a,
Yeah, you may be looking at a different RFP.
Oh, yeah, no, I'm looking at, sorry.
Yeah, I've been busy this month. We had 2 RFPs that are going out right now. You'll be looking at that one next.
Page 54, it looks like a detailed explanation of each of these evaluation criteria.
Oh my Lord,
Oh.
Harry.
oh,
Thank you. Oh,
This
we
is why we
adjusted
have
these
guys-
criteria. I
Yeah.
can make that change. What I did not do is I did not correspondingly update. Oh, thank you so much. I did not correspondingly update the points that are listed next to each of the descriptions. So thank you for calling that out. That correction will be made following this meeting.
I figured it was just a typo.
No, this is why this stuff gets reviewed. Thank you so much. The committee didn't catch that either. Neither did I. Thank you, Harry. You always seem to catch that stuff. I appreciate that we have you on council.
Thank you.
Project understanding.
TJ,
We provide.
more.
Yeah.
You have in your little schedule of criteria, you go capacity and schedule, then references, but in the write-up, you go references, then capacity. Not as significant as a patch time, so
Just put it right.
Yeah, I'll fix that. Thank you guys. I really appreciate it because we want to make sure that this looks good and reflects well in the city and we're putting a good proposal out. So thank you. So what we do provide is a description of what we mean by each of these. We're not just throwing out numbers and a couple of words. We're telling them what we actually mean by all of those. Moving on, we also state very clearly, and this is provided in the schedule, that we'll be conducting interviews. And then there will be selection and negotiation, and that needs to comply with ORS 279C. I provide a hyperlink to that in case some of our proposers don't typically work with or haven't worked with a city in a long time. If they work for a private entity or a nonprofit organization, those organizations are not bound by the same rules that cities are. That includes the qualifications-based selection, for example. We also provide some basically, if the city is unable to reach an agreement with the highest ranked proposer, for example, what if they can't complete it in our budget? Then we reserve the right to go on to that next highest scored proposer. We provide information about the contract structure as well. So this will be a phased professional services contract. And then we do also provide, this is the professional engineering services, water modernization and raw water intake appendix. So this is where I go into a lot of detail. And this is the information that has been pulled from all of those technical documents that are part of the appendices. We identify the specific tasks that they will be responsible for executing. So task 1 is project management and coordination. Task 2 is existing conditions and data review. Task 3 is the survey and site selection, site investigation rather. The task 4 is the geotechnical information and investigation. So basically what's below the ground and below the river. Task 5 is they need to review what's being provided to them as hydraulic and hydraulic information. Those are 2 very closely related words. Hydrology and hydraulics. And task 6 would be alternatives analysis. So they need to tell us what are the alternatives available to us and what do they recommend. And then task 7 is the water system modernization, evaluation, and validation itself. So they're supposed to review and validate the findings, assumptions, and alternatives that were recommended from 2022 and let us know what their actual approach is after looking over all of that information and applying their professional expertise. And then task 8 is the basis of design. So once we accept the preferred raw water intake alternative under task 6, the consultant will prepare what's called the basis of design, which establishes the technical requirements and the design criteria for governing the final design of both projects. That is what will go before Oregon Health Authority Drinking Water Services, that basis of design. And of course, they'll be responsible for coordinating with OHA DWS on that. Forward, a lot of technical information. This is the integrated system design. So again, we've touched on this several times, but the integration between the intake and the water modernization itself. And then the cost, schedule, and implementation. They're responsible for providing an updated opinion of the probable project cost for each project based upon the accepted basis of design for each of those. And that's where they'll be providing that at the 30% certainty, 60%, and 90% certainty as they develop their proposal or their recommendations. And then there's the city review and acceptance. They are responsible for submitting that basis of design to the city for review, and they'll participate in that review meeting following the 1135 Technical Advisory Committee review as well. They'll document and resolve any significant review comments and prepare a final basis of design following those two meetings. So there will be the TAC meeting as well as the city council meeting. They will attend both of them. And if there are any changes to that basis of design, those are to be incorporated before it gets submitted formally to the state for approval. There's task 9, permitting and regulatory coordination. So they will be providing a permitting and regulatory matrix, which will help us understand everything from the local level, state level, and federal level. And they'll be coordinating with the Army Corps of Engineers on 2 of those at least, which is the Section 404 and 408 approvals, which are required for any in-water work that require dredging, essentially. Both of those for the intake as well as for the water modernization. There will also be agency meetings and submittals. So as they meet with agencies, they'll be responsible for documenting the outcomes of those meetings and providing supporting information to support their future recommendations. And then the final design and construction documents that will be developed. This is that 30, 60, 90 piece I was talking about earlier, where they'll have different interview intervals, and that's where those costs will be shored up as we move along. That is the substantial, the core of this document. And then, of course, task 11 is telling us about construction sequencing and the continuity of water service. We cannot have any time during which there is no water service. So they must complete all of this work without us having a gap at all, obviously, because folks need to drink their water. And then task 12 is bidding assistance, which is just a standard piece of these procurements. Construction phases, so they'll tell us about what those are. And that is the end of that very long document. Thank you for staying with me through that. Again, this is about a year of work, as well as 2 full meetings and several hours of offline review by our technical experts on the 1135 committee, several rounds of track changes and discussions and conversations, which Mayor Sheets and Councilor Williams have been a part of as well. Are there any questions on this? I do want to say that I'd like to get this out the door and update and posted on Oregon Buys tomorrow. And that's in order to meet our schedule. So barring the scoring changes, there are no further recommendations from the Technical Advisory Committee. I wanted to put this before council so that we were ready to get this submitted and start receiving proposals.
Anything other than that scoring issue, so. Basically.
I think it looks great.
It was a lot of work. It looks fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you. These last couple of weeks have been brutal. It's worth it though, because this is such an important projects.
Paper mills would probably have.
Oh, yeah, no doubt.
It's double-sided. It's black and white.
I did work for the paper mill.
So you need a motion, correct? And we need to vote on this as well.
Yeah, I just need you to vote on, yes, we can submit this on to Oregon Buys. Yep, just a directive from council for staff to post this for proposers to start submitting.
I'll make a motion to move forward with this request for proposal for professional engineering services, water system modernization, and raw water intake improvements to be posted on Oregon Buys.
I'll second that. And to elaborate, it's RFP 2026-01.
Any comments or questions before we vote? Yeah, I think we'll do it. Ready? Counselor Ray,
Yes.
Counselor Wood,
Yes.
Counselor Myers,
Yes.
Counselor Belton,
Yes.
Counselor Evans,
Yes.
Counselor Cuthbertson. Counselor Cuthbertson,
She's done.
you still with us?
See the mic moves. That's all.
Go to the people.
She's still on me.
And Councilor Cuthbertson, you're on mute, by the way. I don't know if you're responding.
You can type it in the chat too, if that works better.
I can do that.
But if she's here, I might as well.
There you go.
I hope I didn't bore her. She may have stepped away from her desk for a moment.
We have enough to move forward.
Yeah, we have a number, just like. Yeah, I got Counselor Evans. Just what I want to give. I want to give Counselor Cuthbertson.
Dawn, could you text Councilor Cuthbertson and just check in with her? If you have her, I think you have her number.
Yeah, yeah.
I just texted her.
Oh, thank you. And Mayor Sheets, if you'd like, we can grab her vote. We can backtrack and grab her vote after looking at the next RFP if you'd like to. Or we can wait a few minutes. Your call.
I give her one more minute and then we can do that.
Yes, sir. All right.
Very careful.
Excellent. It's that whole thing, sir. Okay, let's go ahead and move on. Hopefully
Okay.
she'll catch up with us. Okay, so the next item is, I believe this is RFP 2026-02.
Yes. Thank you. So this one's a little bit shorter, a little bit briefer and easier. So this one is specifically for a new engineer of record. As you all may recall, right about the time I came on board, we brought on our engineer of record on a 1-year interim basis because we did not do a full RFP process. We needed somebody in the engineer seat. We're now at a point where we need to select our semi-permanent engineer. I mentioned a little bit ago, these are 3-year contracts with up to 2 1-year extensions. I'll briefly go over this. We have the table of contents, which is the general information, the city background, scope of services, the schedule, the proposal instructions, the proposal contents, as well as minimum qualifications, the evaluation and selection, and the contract term and general conditions. I'll briefly go over each of these. We're looking for proposals for our formal engineer of record. This person will be authorized through individual task orders or other written authorization defining the work that they will be doing on an ad hoc as needed basis. A little bit of background about the city for them to understand our size, where we're located, and what kind of work we have coming up over this coming year in particular, as well as the future years. So that includes the municipal water drinking water system, surface water intake, our treatment facilities, our storage for wastewater, our distribution infrastructure, as well as our lagoons and the streets, right-of-way, stormwater, full-service engineering firm. The scope of services, we include general municipal engineering. So they need to provide technical advice to us and to public works staff and other city personnel as needed. They'll attend and provide technical support at city council meetings, planning commission, 1135 committees, the development review committee, or other meetings as requested. They'll assist with capital improvement planning and infrastructure evaluation. There's also the role of development and plan review. So they may provide engineering review and technical assistance associated with private development. That includes things like subdivisions and large commercial projects that are connected to our land use planning. They will be responsible for providing engineering services and support for our utility and public infrastructure engineering. So streets, stormwater, sidewalks, right-of-way, parks, public buildings, the full suite. Capital projects and specialized services. This touches directly on things like our water modernization project and our water intake. The city may, and in fact will, authorize the EOR to provide those services for specific capital improvement projects or other specialized assignments, which may include things like feasibility studies and alternative analyses, reviewing what engineers that are selected through RFP procurements are recommending. They'll look at things like preliminary and final designs, permitting, plans and specifications, as well as provide bidding assistance where needed. Here's the schedule, pretty slim and straight. The RFP will be issued also tomorrow on Oregon Buys. The deadline for questions will be the 4th of September. Proposals will be due a full 30 days later. This does not need a 6-week window. The proposal evaluation will happen over the course of a few days. And then the notice of intent to award will happen in October with contract execution at the 10/26 city council meeting. So we'll be asking for city approval to seat that individual for their 3-year term at the end of October. We provide proposals, we provide submittal instructions. These ones I'm having go to City Hall, and I'll be asking Don and Grace to make sure that they collect all of these and submit them to me when the closing date happens. I'll be focusing on the other RFP until that time. Any questions and addenda will be submitted as part of the schedule. Reservation of rights, again, all the basic things that we reserve the right to do, including selecting the next highest ranked individual and to negotiate with that firm. There's a protest period, the public records piece, boilerplate information there. Cost of proposal preparation, we're not paying you to do that work. And the proposal contents, they need to tell us about their firm and their team. Our current engineer, I understand, will likely be submitting this as well, so they'll likely be one of those proposals. Qualifications and relevant experience. Their approach, availability and responsiveness. Representative projects and references. We're looking for not only references, 3 at least, but also projects that they've worked on that demonstrate their capacity and ability to provide everything that we need from an engineer of record. As well as their minimum qualifications. They need to be licensed, legally qualified, if they're using sub-consultants or another team. They must have the personnel resources and the professional capabilities necessary to provide these general municipal engineering services as described. They must be able to meet the city's insurance requirements as well. And proposals that do not demonstrate compliance with the minimum qualifications may be deemed non-responsive and removed from further consideration. So our evaluation criteria include qualifications and experience, 25 points. Relevant municipal engineering experience, including experience with small Oregon communities and infrastructure systems, 20 points. Approach to serving the city as a city engineer of record, including their communication approach, their responsiveness, and their management of city assignments. Their availability, capacity, and ability to provide the actual services that they're capable of doing. And their rate schedule as well, and pricing information. This is not a qualifications-based RFP. We will be looking at their price. And also references and demonstrated past performance. We may ask for clarification. Contract in general terms. This will be a professional services agreement. It'll have a contract term of 3 years, as mentioned, with up to 2 additional 1-year periods for extension, so a total of 5 years maximum before we must move forward with another RFP. As well as the authorization of services and their compensation. Any specialized and separately procured services, we reserve the right to submit and send out other RFPs for specialized consultants like we're doing right now, previous to this one. They must demonstrate their insurance requirements, as well as contract negotiation will happen after we select the top applicants. So those are the big pieces there. Any questions on this RFP? This is a lot slimmer, a lot more straightforward and typical for a city.
Nope. Well,
And I'm asking for the same thing. I'm asking for a directive from council for authorization to put this up on Oregon Buys and start receiving those proposals from engineers.
I'll make a motion that we accept City of Monroe, Oregon request for proposal, City Engineer of Record Services, RFP 2026-02, to be published and.
I'll second that motion.
okay, any comments or questions before we vote? Okay. All right, let's vote. Councilor Ray.
Yes.
Councilor Williams. Councilor Mike.
Yes.
Councilor Felty.
Yes.
Councilor Evans.
Yes.
I can barely hear you. I think you said yes.
Yes.
Thank you. Councilor Cuthbertson.
She may be having some technical issues. I don't know.
Did we get a response at all from her?
She never
No.
responded to the text message.
Well, we have enough votes to move on.
Yes, we do.
So we'll just go ahead and proceed. And hopefully she can catch up with, get her technical issues resolved and catch up with this later. If not, we got the votes and we're good.
Thank you.
Okay, so where are we at next? We have got, update on staffing. So TJ, I'll let you take that off.
If you don't mind, Dawn, I'm gonna let you take 11.1 if you would, please. I think I needed some water.
No, I totally understand. You've done a lot of talking. Essentially, we're asking council for permission to move forward with making the administrative assistant to potentially a full-time role, starting with 32 hours per week. It's been very difficult to hold on to find two part-time people to assume these roles, and also the training that goes into just one employee, but then also taking on a second and training a second employee is just, it's a lot. There's also some knowledge that goes behind these. I mean, the person's attending the meetings, they're helping with utility billing. There's a lot that goes into this. So we feel that it would be more appropriate to have a full-time role starting at 32 hours and then going from there. I know that personnel committee had discussed this last we met, and they were supportive of this as well. So we're just wanting to get council's input on this and approval to move forward with a full-time role. Rather than two part-time.
So yes, personnel committee. You weren't there, I'm sorry, you was a fun. So we did recommend that the administrative assistant to position, move up to 32 hours. TJ, if I remember correctly, there's no issue on the budget. We have the money, because we're essentially combining.
Due to the fact that we're starting with 32 hours especially, that will essentially cover that insurance cost, because we would be having the 20 hours per week. So that's why 32 is what we're recommending for now.
And also, we're only a month and a half into our new budget. So we are nowhere near exceeding our current appropriations. This is one of the reasons that we will be bringing a supplemental budget before you in the next couple of months. But we'll be doing that once we have a clear understanding of how many hours we really need, alongside some of the other things that we're looking at for that supplemental budget. But in this current moment, we are well within our capacity to make this change.
I just have a quick question. So we had two part-time, which were ineligible for PERS. And now this full-time at 32 will be eligible for PERS.
So actually, even a part-time role, so even Ron, for example, the park host, he's eligible for PERS. It's after, I believe, 600 hours in a year. I would have to look and brush up, but it's anybody's eligible for PERS after a certain number of hours. Yeah,
I think it's
yeah.
stuff. Do we provide insurance?
No, for 20 hours we do not.
Yeah, I think that is the difference. I think that 32 we will provide.
Correct.
The insurance piece, yeah.
Got it. Okay. Thank you for the clarification.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I have a question. It's more related to the agenda. Do you want us to, we're gonna have to vote on each one of these, this item, next item. You want to combine them, or you want us to vote on it separately?
I'll leave that up to the council. I'm happy either way. What do you think, Mayor Sheets? That's your call.
I'm okay with combining them. So we'll do that. Okay. Any other questions about the administrative assistant? Okay, we'll go ahead and move on to the next one. Public Works Utility position. So this is Jake, that will be full time, which would be 40 hours, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
And he's already doing that. We lost George. And this really just takes his hours and shifts them over to Jake. Essentially,
Right.
we already had him at 32 hours a week. We're just bringing him up to 40 hours a week in total. No change in insurance.
Questions on that? Well, you've heard that.
On the record.
Okay, so, need a motion.
I'll make a motion to move the administrative assistant from 20 hours to 32 hours, that being full-time. And moving the public works utility position 1 to full-time. Make that starting immediately.
I'll second.
Any other comments or questions? What's that? Jonathan? Councilor Ray?
Yes.
Councilor Williams?
Yes.
Councilor Myers?
Yes.
Councilor Felty?
Yes.
Councilor Evans?
Yes.
Councilor Cuthbertson? Okay, we'll go ahead, we'll move on. We've got the votes that we need. So there you go. All
Thank you.
squared away. You're welcome. Let's see. We have the city administrator annual review packet,
That is separate.
and that is separate, and I will talk to that, so TJ, poor TJ can right here. So it is in front of you, it is 12 pages, that, come on, you can't front and back. So-
You did, didn't we?
Yeah, no, I only got every other page.
So, yeah. So.
Yours is fine?
Yeah, we can't use those ones.
We'll email that out to you guys. You have a copy in your
Yeah.
emails. You can print it.
So,
Oh,
so we'll get it in email if you want to print it copy. Well, aren't you?
I have.
I don't need that.
If it's online. we can look through it.
And I-
Yeah, it'll get emailed out, and if you want a hard copy, you can City Hall, sure, yeah, do that too. Okay, well, anyway, so you're supposed to have a copy of each of the counselors, including myself. Copy of this. We need to have you go ahead and complete that on.
Is it electronically available?
I have not attempted. I'm very sorry. Terribly, terribly sorry.
Yeah.
They don't get paid enough, I'm sorry. So you can either print it out and just write it up and turn it back into City Hall, or however the means you like to return it. Yeah, I wish it was, but at that time. Anyway, so TJ will be filling out the same evaluation form, and he will return it as well. Each city councilor will need to fill it out and return it. I need them back, the personnel committee needs them back by end of day September 21st, which is the week before our city council meeting in September. Personnel committee will get time to evaluate them, combine the information, be prepared for that council meeting in September. The September meeting is, I believe, it's September 28th.
Oh, okay, so you are giving one.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, is that early?
Hopefully. I hope so. Also, as part of this process, we'll go ahead and at September meeting, as I said, we'll review and evaluate. We're going to go into an executive session. So there will be no public here. It will not be recorded, and we'll review evaluation with TJ. It'll just be us and TJ. And that's on the 28th. Right. Executive session will be on. So our regular meeting, which is September 20th. And from there, once we're done with the executive session, we'll come back out into open session. If there's any discussion about adjusting pay increases, anything else that we need to discuss, we can do that in open. Any recommendations, new goals, updating old goals, whatever the case may be. But executive, we're going to use that time to discuss the evaluation. That's basically the plan. I just need personnel committee needs this completed and returned by the end of the day, September 21st.
We'll reprint these tomorrow too, and that way if anybody, or let me know if you need it printed, and I'll have it at City Hall. I will be out, just as a side note, from the 26th to the 28th of this month, so let me know tomorrow if you want it printed, and plenty of advance.
I'll just, print them on demand. So you
Right?
Have to.
Yeah, exactly.
It's 6 pages.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Sorry.
You have to do is print out the evening pages.
We good. We good.
Any questions? I know I kind of took over and I apologize.
I appreciate you.
I just was like, we didn't have an evaluation form, so I just kind of. There's your marching orders, there's your homework. But I really wanted to get this done, get this out the door as soon as possible for TJ. Because we are already past this year as it is. We're getting further and further away. We need to get it done. Take care of it. Okay. TJ, is there anything you want to add to that?
No, sir. I just want to say again, I appreciate you creating a structured process I think I reviewed the form today after you sent it out, responded to your email that it was received, and I really do appreciate how clear it is, and you've given us plenty of time, the council and myself, to complete it.
Dawn, I would,
Yes?
I would appreciate a printed copy. I am out of town. I will be in late tomorrow night, but then I'll be going right back out of town to Portland and won't be back till probably Thursday morning, but you'll be out of town. Will it be okay if I pick it up at City Hall?
There won't be anybody at City Hall staffing it. Think of how we could do this.
One of us could pick it up.
Okay.
And then
Willing to-
make arrangements, yeah.
Okay. So it sounds like we have a few counselors here that would be willing to pick that up for you, so you could then
First ball fee.
grab it from them.
Okay, I'm sorry. You guys are all garbled and not coming in very well.
So we have council members. I know Councilor Felty and Councilor Myers were both willing to potentially pick that up so that you can gain access to it from them if need be.
Okay, I think I know where Counselor Myers lives. He's explained it to me several times, but I'm not certain where.
I have
sorry?
this is Counselor Felty. I have a pretty good idea.
You guys are pretty close.
Yeah. I can
Okay.
leave it under a rock on your front step tomorrow night. Tomorrow night, probably.
Okay, you could just leave it on my front porch. It'll work.
Okay, sounds great.
I'll leave it to you to communicate with
All
each
right.
other.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, okay. I think we're ready to move on to the next agenda. Okay. So next employer contribution towards health benefits. That's in our packet. Yep.
What's the question?
Seeking council guidance regarding city's 50% contribution towards dependent coverage being applied to medical, vision, and dental benefits, and personnel handbook is there.
Yes. And so this is one of the things we will have to clarify. This is the only reference in our employee handbook that I can find regarding our healthcare benefits. It does not specify whether or not dental is also covered at 50% for the dependents. And I know in the past years, we have not put that on our request for coverage form. For the upcoming 2027 year, we did because of the language in there. But we're looking to get guidance from council on whether or not that is something that what your understanding is of this, because of previous conversations that maybe you recall whether or not dental was included.
It's really weird the way it's built.
It is.
Yeah.
Because it just says healthcare. It doesn't necessarily. Mhm.
Is it just
Then
a portion?
Yeah, I know medical and vision are kind of combined, and that's always been paid at 50% for the dependents. Right now, we only have one employee that has a dependent on there, but we need clarification so that our request for coverage is matching what we're actually.
Is there somewhere else in it that it says the 50%? Right here, this is portion.
I'd
I'd like to have.
well, it's on on our actual CIS web or the CIS request for coverage website. It has 50%. I know that's what we've done in the past for healthcare. It doesn't even say that in the handbook though that I'm aware of.
It doesn't.
So,
It
no,
just says portion. I'd like to have that.
specify, yeah.
That's what we're asking for tonight, is directive from council,
Some clarity on
especially as
how
we
this
can.
one-
We'll
Sorry,
convert our
I'll-
handbook into, oh, you're good. We'll convert our handbook into the ADP resource and then update it within their portal. But we need clarification on whether the 50%, first off, should be included in the handbook formally. And second off, if that 50% also includes dental.
I have to pay health and I have a premium for eye care and dental. but my spouse 50% on all of those. So if private companies are doing that, so we can.
I agree. I don't have a problem with it. It's pretty standard and
Yeah,
I don't have a problem with
I'm sorry, can you please repeat that, Counselor Myers?
but yeah, all I said is where I work, I pay for my healthcare, my eye care and my dental is all separate payments. But for my spouse or any other dependents, it's 50%. And so I don't see why we shouldn't identify that we cover all health, eye and dental the same, because if the employee has, as long as the employee is signed in for those, all three of those,
Right.
then I would say their dependents get all three at 50%. Do we have to make a motion on this?
Yes.
Okay.
Did that answer your question, Councilor Evans?
Yes, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Any other question? This seems pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
We definitely, the employee angle. Need a
I'll
motion?
make a motion that we define the employee healthcare benefits. We need to specify that the dependents are covered at 50% on all enrolled healthcare, including health, vision, and dental. Enrolled, yeah, we need to make sure if the employee's enrolled in it, then, yeah, so if the employee doesn't enroll, then, yeah,
That's fine.
yeah, so it'd have to be on one-to-one
I
enrolled.
agree.
Right.
I second.
Okay. Any other comments or questions?
Anything from our employees that can give us any insight?
As far as, sorry.
Are we covering the bases well, or?
Oh, yeah.
Any other questions?
Yes.
I feel you're covering what we need, yes.
Yeah.
I didn't think I needed one. You're covering everything.
I just want to make sure we're taking care of you guys.
I have a question.
Good.
Is there a waiting period for this?
This
This
would
is
apply
so-
to,
Go ahead, Don.
this would apply to an employee who's been employed with us for over a year now.
Okay, thank
So there
you.
would be no waiting period. This would be something, this would be taking effect, though, to answer your question, in the calendar year 2027 for this specific benefit, because our RFC request for coverage right now does not cover it at 50% for the the dependents.
So Jane.
So January of 2027 is when this would take effect.
So we don't cover dependents right now?
Right now, it's only been medical and vision. I noticed this year when I was doing the request for coverage and TJ and I were reviewing it together that it didn't specify. And that's how this question came up. Previously, we were not covering dental at 50% for dependents, only medical and vision.
Okay, thank you.
Now, I have a question before we vote. Are we in open enrollment at this point?
No.
No, I believe open enrollment's October range.
Okay, so we need to make sure this is taken care of before then.
Yes.
That's what I wanted. Okay.
Any other questions?
Okay, I do have another question though.
Okay,
So
go
for,
ahead.
for a new employee that comes on, they don't have to wait for open enrollment after this goes into effect. Is there a waiting period for a new employee? I mean,
Yeah, I
like
think-
past probation period or anything, or can they just enroll on day one?
There's an
So our-
enrollment period right up front. Go ahead, Don, you handle this directly.
so
Go right
our-
ahead.
So our enrollment, so as far as benefits are concerned for our full-time employees, They take effect the first day of the month after they are hired.
Okay, thank you.
Are we ready? Let's vote. Counselor Ray,
Yes.
Counselor Williams,
Yes.
Counselor Myers,
Yes.
Counselor Felty,
Yes.
Counselor Evans,
Yes.
Counselor Cuthbertson.
Yes.
Thank you. Six. Library landscaping services contract. Well, Roger Black.
Thank you. So this is the third time you looked at this. I did not include this in your packet again because we've looked at it a couple of different times. The big update is you all asked me to get feedback from the board of SBCEA, and they have no revisions. They're very happy with this contract. They fully understand that we work on our own schedule and make our own, really make our own, I don't want to say rules, but directions as far as how we complete this work. There was nothing to add, nothing to delete. What I'm asking for tonight is the ability to move forward and sign this contract with Roger. Their board has approved that on their end. They've given Roger the authority to do so. Pretty straightforward, boilerplate, 2 pages of information here stating everything that we've revised as a council. And again, you directed me to see if there were any changes or updates from their board. Seeing and hearing none, I would simply want to get this executed as soon as possible for liability purposes. We are doing the work right now, and we also are not getting paid until this is implemented.
Okay.
I'll make a motion that we. set
Can
up
I
the-
say something first, please? I'm sorry. I had my
Okay.
hand up. Hello?
Can't see your hand, I'm sorry. But
I learned something about this, just to let you guys know. Lorena, who does the gardening there, gave me some information about this. They told us that they had a landscaper that didn't show up and was unreliable. Well, that wasn't exactly probably the real truth. What had happened was they asked a volunteer to come mow and weed eat. That volunteer didn't volunteer to mow and weed eat, so he didn't come and do that. That was supposedly their landscaper that didn't show up. Just so you know.
Councilor Evans, I really appreciate the additional feedback. I've had several discussions with Roger, and that information, I didn't get that level of information from him. What we heard from them and what the board discussed, I understand, was something along the lines of somebody hadn't showed up and they were supposed to in the past. Whether that is true or not, I think the important thing here is that we've agreed to provide a service. We have
I
already started.
understand.
Yeah, and we've already started to provide the service. So I don't want to necessarily spend too much time litigating whether or not they told us the right thing or not. I do appreciate the update though, and I don't know if council has any comments or feedback on that, or if that weighs on your decision or not. I'll leave that up to you all to discuss.
I
I'll just make
understand. I had mentioned this to Mayor Sheets and he asked me to mention it to the whole council. That's all.
Understood. Thank you.
It's good to know, but I just want to say, contractor doesn't necessarily mean it's a paid contract.
True.
I mean, we're all volunteers here. Except for one.
we're all volunteers.
We're all volunteers here too, so. It could be just, semantics.
Yeah, that doesn't change.
I'm not saying anybody was trying to see you.
What are we voting on?
We're just voting on our doing contracting.
Yeah, we want to get paid.
Yeah, that's the
We're doing the work.
And we want to protect ourselves liability wise when we're out there. If the rock goes through a window or somebody gets hurt, nothing is actually on paper until this is signed.
Exactly.
Okay.
Time of need.
It's just on advantage.
I know we've discussed this one. I understand it. I don't know along with it, but you know, as I go through the city, I see weeds growing between the curb and or the curbing and the sidewalk, and I think, why do we need to worry about one to library? Can't take care of our own sidewalks, but interior there, like it's fun.
Well, I think it is part of that, because I mean, they are in need of our service at our most critical time when we should be busy maintaining the city.
I mean, the south end of town looks okay, but you go to the north end of town, it looks like crap, I'm sorry. So,
And one of the things is the city ordinance, I believe, puts it on the land.
I'm talking about the curb.
I'm talking about
The curb makes the sidewalk, not the barrier, not the.
I'm talking about that. I think our ordinance covers all the way out to the curb. But there's like down
I'm in the
on,
little gap.
yeah, down at the museum, I weed that, I do that for the museum.
It's usually the right of it.
Yeah, but,
Right.
well, if I remember right, it's been a long time
So we're
since,
gonna get this man.
I know, it's been a long time, but I don't know who I have to go through. Is there an ordinance committee? Anymore, so who covers?
So that would be TJ and Weimar.
So, I mean, I'm trying to answer Councilor Ray.
Yeah,
He brings up a really good point. There's people that don't take care of things.
right.
So do we have an ordinance that says the city takes care of this because it's a public right of way? Or does the landowner have to take care of it? That's adjoining to their, up to the street, which means the curb and all the cracks in between.
Right. That's a great question. I can't.
What do our ordinances? I think we can't really. I want to take care of the library and do that. But I also want to answer Council Ray because he brings up a really good point. I see crackland all over the place. And I'm having weeds come to me because maybe,
Yeah, they're not taking care of their stuff.
so
Yeah.
I'm 100% behind Council Ray on this. I just want to make sure we.
In the beginning, they talked about appearance, now the biggest thing here, it's too much coming from the north end of town, but it's not the library, it's the issue. That whole strip, you guys are.
Yeah.
Oh, anyway.
I got
So-
on that.
I can say that in our best practices review with CIS, one of the things we learned is that particular ordinance needs to be buttoned up a little bit. We do not expressly state that the sidewalk is the direct responsibility of the landowner in front of that sidewalk. And that's something that they strongly recommend we do bring before council for revision. That is something that we will bring before council before revision over these next couple of months. But we did learn through that process that it's not as clear as it should be.
Thank you.
In this contract for mowing the library grounds, are we also going to start mowing behind the library by that rock path that what was part of 6th Street? And also that other part between the library and the wetlands?
No, my understanding is that we're going to simply maintain the library itself, unless they want us to do that work, and then it would be up to Mark to determine if he has the capacity, and then we'd simply bill them at the rate that we state within the contract. So if they wanted to pay a little bit more, and we had the capacity to do so, this contract does enable us to do that.
Does this contract have any chemical release included, which means spraying,
Spraying Roundup, so.
or is it all mechanical release?
It's all mechanical. Really, we haven't gone into much detail defining the actual services, except to state that the city will do what they think is the best So we'll provide routine mowing and trimming of the library grounds using city personnel and equipment. That service will be performed at intervals determined by the city based upon staffing availability, weather conditions, operational priorities, and normal maintenance schedule. And nothing in this agreement shall obligate the city to perform services on a specific date or frequency. That said, we left it intentionally open so that we could, if there was a request and also the ability for us to do so, we might be able to do other types of work. But the goal here is to get it mowed and looking good.
My conversations with Loretta, who does the gardening there, that the areas that I was talking about is part of the library grounds. It is overgrown with dead grass, which is a fire hazard.
Mm.
So I don't know.
It's a good point. And
I'm
so
just,
again,
I'm just passing on what I was told.
thank you. This is up to Mark. This is his bailiwick. If we give him the authorization to move forward with these services and he has the capacity as the contract states, and the library wants to pay him to do that work, we'll go ahead and take care of it. But we're not specifying the where, the when, or the how in this contract. We're simply covering the liability, holds harmless, and authorization to do mowing and mechanical work. If we do that work also in the back, it may be that that is included, and I don't know the level of detail to respond to that accurately right now. But I do entrust Mark to handle this in the way that he sees fit.
Okay, and who tells him where to mow? I mean, what's on, what area does he mow? Who tells him that?
They request the area that they want mowed. He did go to the board meeting, and they seem pleased with what he's doing right now. They haven't asked for anything different. They didn't say you're not doing X, Y, or Z. So far, they do seem happy with it. However, again, this contract is written in such a way where if they said, hey, you know, it'd be great if you went in the back and mowed that other piece too, Mark could say, yeah, I've got the time and availability for that, and we'll just bill you the extra time.
Okie dokie.
I just needed some clarification. So since there's some misunderstanding perhaps on what constitutes, what the job, the scope of work for the job, like the area that's going to be maintained. Are they happy with the services we've provided thus far?
Yeah, that's why I wanted Mark to go to that board meeting. So if they had any concerns or something that they wanted to raise, the guy responsible for directing staff to go out there was right there and available to respond to those concerns. They thanked him for what we've been doing thus far. They didn't say you weren't doing anything that we wanted you to be doing. It seems like we're in a good spot right now. And like I said, if they wanted anything in the future, Mark's really easy to contact and request additional work if we have the capacity.
That's what we need to define capacity, I think, because if we're seeing having these, egregious overgrown things that are happening and we can't define the ordinance, who's really responsible. I think that goes to understanding what our capacity is. I think the city needs to be maintained first and foremost, and then the library is the second priority, but it should not be the main priority ever.
I completely agree. And that's part of the reason that we stated that it is based on staffing availability, and they can't tell us when that gets done or how frequently. And so if we need to skip a week or a month, then we are fully within our right to do so under this contract. But at this point, I'm very nervous about the liability and hold harmless. And so if we don't get a contract in place, I will pull Mark off of this task because we're, it's only a matter of time before, again, a rock goes through a window or somebody gets hurt or something like that.
I don't know if there's enough flexibility in this agreement that will come. I can make sure the Mark takes care of the city first when he goes over there and votes.
It's optics. I mean,
Oh, I know. All right, any other comments or questions? We do have a motion. It hasn't been seconded yet.
I'll second.
Oh, fight for it.
I'll second the motion.
Okay.
Here, Counselor Myers. 29 minutes. How's it going?
I know what.
We could rerun the tape.
Oh, okay. All right, I have a first and a second. Let's vote, shall we? Counselor Ray. Yes. Counselor Williams.
Yes.
Counselor Felty.
Yes.
Counselor Evans.
Yes,
Counselor Cuthbertson.
Yes.
There you are, TJ. Well done.
Thank you. And I will be speaking with Mark about the other areas in the city that are of concern. And I will tell you that if we need to look inward first, I will be asking him to forego Mo's at the library if that's what's required, because our city does come first. And I have absolutely heard the concerns of council. I second those concerns 100%. So I do want you to know that just because this contract is in place, giving us the liability relief and holds harmless clauses, that does not mean that we are going to neglect our city. And so I'll be having a discussion with him about what needs to be done in order to make sure that that does get handled first and foremost.
Thank you.
Thank you for the feedback.
thank you.
Next item on the agenda. The emergency action plan for the first responders event. It's on Friday, September 11th. You've seen the version of this before. It was for the festival. It's just pared down a little bit more. The same information. It's, page 90 in the packet. You got your emergency plan coordinators. You got everybody's name and their contact information. And we also have, let's see here. See, persons responsible for contacting emergency responders on page 91. See those folks there, their contact information. Also, it's the same checklist, nothing has changed. And a nice map. Yeah, thank you. I've actually run this through the fire chief already. I'm gonna have you guys look at it, see what your thoughts were on it. Sheriff, and he'll share it with his deputies, of course. The emergency evacuation route map is in here. If there's something happens, we're ready. We have to get people out of here. And the actual event map is here as well. I have on this map because there's a couple things going on. If we want to have this event at the fire station is very for major that building. So the fire chief expressed to me, just an FYI, if they start ripping into that building. So right now, I do have on the map here, secondary and a backup location after that. In case there's weather issues, city hall, the former library space is our final backup plan. On here, TJ, do we need to have a council vote on this, or is this more of just an FYI?
This is so specifically for this item, you may, I'll leave this up to you, sir, because there's no requirement, I think, that council approve this, but it might be a good idea to get their support.
Okay, well, as you mentioned, the fire chief he's already looked at this and he's approved it. I kind of preliminary kind of approval. I'm just waiting for it. We're pretty close to the event. So who's going to make the proclamations too? Yes, we'd like to do that. But, so, I mean, we can go ahead and we can do a motion on this. I didn't think it really did either. But that's up to you guys. If you're comfortable enough with the way this is, the fire chief's gonna get it, the sheriff's gonna get it. Of course, the city will as well.
So you want a motion like we accept the 2026 first responders appreciation event emergency action plan as written?
Yeah, I think simple.
Okay, there's motion.
I'll second.
Move on. I mean, I agree. I don't know why, but
Now it's on record.
Yeah, it's up there. We okay to vote? Councilor Red? Yes. Councilor Williams?
Yes.
Councilor Mike?
yes.
Councilor Filthy?
Yes.
Councilor Evans?
Yes,
Councilor Cuthbertson?
Yes.
Thank you.
I have a follow-up question.
Okay.
Who made this?
Yeah, people. I did.
We're gonna use it as a backup for future.
Well, we didn't, the rope festival, so
Sorry.
yes, yes, you may. Made them happy too. Very good.
Well, we do those for any group that comes in.
You didn't have anything, so you didn't. Okay. Okay, so we have, next up on the agenda is 3 proclamations. 2 of these proclamations, the first 2 will be read at the first responders event. It's full of them and they were. The 3rd one, actually, I had a citizen request it. They would actually, they volunteer at the library, and they wanted to have this proclamation for the kids. So I went ahead and I entertained that and then pointed out. So just to give you that point, I'm gonna go ahead and read through each proclamation and then we'll vote. We vote on all 3 of them together? Let's see, no one to do that. TJ, is that okay? You just had council.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Again, there's no requirement, but if you feel it's a good idea, however you want to handle it, I support.
Just a couple big to you here. I'll go ahead and I'll read them. I'll read it. Excuse me. Okay, this is the City of Monroe Proclamation, First Responders, Military Appreciation Month. Whereas the safety, security, and well-being of the City of Monroe has been our courage, skill, and dedication of first responders and military personnel to serve our community and nation. And whereas firefighters, law enforcement officers, emergency medical professionals, emergency dispatchers, emergency personnel, and other public safety professionals respond in times of crisis, often placing needs and safety of others before their own. And whereas members of the United States Armed Forces, including those serving on active duty in the National Guard and the Reserves, defend our nation, protect our freedoms, provide humanitarian assistance, and support communities during emergencies. And whereas the City of Monroe also recognizes our military veterans, whose service and sacrifices continue to inspire gratitude and respect throughout our community. And whereas behind every first responder and military service member stands a family whose patience, strength, and sacrifice make that service possible. And whereas those dedicated individuals regularly confront dangerous, demanding, and emotionally difficult circumstances while demonstrating professionalism, compassion, resilience, and unwavering commitment to duty. And whereas it is fitting that the residents of Monroe express their sincere appreciation for these brave men and women and remember those who have made the ultimate sacrifice in service to others. And whereas the City of Monroe encourages residents, businesses, schools, civic organizations, and community groups who recognize and support our first responders, military personnel, veterans, and their families through acts of gratitude, service, and remembrance. Now, therefore, the mayor of the Monroe City Council, do hereby proclaim September 2026 as First Responders and Military Appreciation Month in the City of Monroe, and call upon all residents to honor the courage, sacrifice, and selfless service of the first responders and military personnel to protect our community, defend our nation, and preserve our life. My phone is tired, so try to read fast. Patience differences. So our next proclamation, City of Monroe Proclamation, 25th anniversary of September 11th, 2001. Whereas September 11th, 2026 marks the 25th anniversary of the terrorist attacks against the United States of America on September 11th, 2001, a day that forever changed our nation and the world. And whereas nearly 3,000 innocent people lost their lives in New York City, at the Pentagon, and abroad on board, United Airlines Flight 93, including firefighters, law enforcement officers, emergency medical personnel, military members, and civilians from across the United States and any other nation. And whereas you remember with profound gratitude the first responders and ordinary citizens who demonstrated extraordinary courage by placing themselves in harm's way to save others, as well as the service members subsequently answered our nation's call. And whereas we recognize the survivors, families, first responders, recovery workers, and communities who continue to bear the physical and emotional effects of that tragic day. And whereas in the aftermath of the attacks, Americans came together in remarkable spirit of unity, compassion, service, and resolve, values that remain essential to the strength of our community. And whereas the passage of 25 years does not diminish our duty to honor those who were lost, preserve the history of September 11th for future generations, and reaffirm our commitment to freedom, peace, and mutual respect. And whereas the city of Monroe encourages all residents to observe this solemn anniversary, the remembrance, reflection, acts of service, and expressions of gratitude to those who safeguard our community. Now, therefore, let the mayor and city council be hereby proclaim September 11th, 2026 as Patriot Day and a day of remembrance. In the city of Monroe, we call upon our residents to honor the lives lost, recognize the courage and sacrifice shown on September 11th, 2001, and ensure the lessons and legacy of that day are never forgotten. Our last proclamation. City of Monroe proclamation for Constitution Week, September 17th to the 23rd, 2026. Whereas September 17, 2026 marks the 239th anniversary of the signing of the Constitution of the United States of America by the Constitutional Convention at Independence Hall in Philadelphia. And whereas Public Law 915 was signed into law on August 2nd, 1956 by President Dwight D. Eisenhower, officially designating September 17th through September 23rd of each year as Constitution Week. And whereas the Constitution serves as the foundation of our federal republic, establishing a government of the people, by the people, and for the people, securing the blessings of liberty, justice, and prosperity for we the people, and ensuring the fundamental rights of every American. And whereas the Constitution's enduring strength comes from its system of representative government, separation of power, checks and balances, and protections for individual liberty under the law. And whereas the continued success of our constitutional republic depends upon an informed and engaged citizenry, committed to understanding and preserving the principles embodied in this historic document. And whereas Constitution Week provides an opportunity for residents of all ages to study the Constitution, reflect upon its enduring significance, and honor the vision and determination of those who helped establish our nation's system of government. Now, therefore, the mayor and Monroe City Council do hereby proclaim September 17th through September 23rd, 2026 as Constitution Week in the city of Monroe, for all residents, schools, civic organizations, and community institutions to observe the Constitution Week through educational programs and other activities that promote civic knowledge and participation. There you go. Now I'm going to listen to you else. So I'm just looking for a motion to essentially approve those proclamations. The first two, I would like to read them again. At the first responders and then let's cover it up.
I will make a motion to move forward with the following City of Monroe proclamations. First being the First Responders and Military Appreciation Month. Second being the 25th anniversary of September 11th, 2001. And the third being Constitution Week, September 17th through 23rd, 2026.
I'll second that. Comments, question, there you go. So. There you go. Councilor Ray. Yes. Councilor Williams.
Yes.
Councilor Byers.
Yes.
Councilor Felty.
Yes.
Councilor Evans.
Yes.
Councilor Cuthbertson.
She dropped off the meeting, actually. She's not here with us.
Yeah,
Okay.
she texted me that she had to step away.
Got it.
We have enough votes, it's fine. Thank you for letting me know, I appreciate it. What do we have left on the agenda?
India, please.
Committee updates, all right, I'll give the economic development committee one, but TJ's really already touched on this. We're working on our economic development priorities. We have 5 of them, correct?
We have squatted.
And we have a SWOT analysis that we're doing. That's our homework. So that's what we're working on. TJ, can you provide one real quick on the 35 technical advisors committee?
Yes, the committee did a lot of excellent work on the water modernization and water intake RFP. I got some great feedback from some very qualified individuals. That whole committee is just doing an amazing job. I really appreciate the people that we have there and their dedication to this both during and offline during that committee. Next month, we're going to be going into a little bit more detail about the schedule for the procurement and timeline for selecting our engineer. And you can look forward to more updates in the coming months. Once we select that individual, they'll be providing guidance to you on the decisions that are made by that successful engineer. Those are all the updates for now, but look for much more detail in the future.
Dr. Cuthbertson dropped. She's the chair for Parks and Beautification. I know that we've been talking about the master plan and getting to that big. I know that it's definitely something that we are at full swing with right now. I know last committee meeting, we had homework.
Correct, yes.
Development Review Committee, you guys have on this one already.
We talked about this briefly. The next Development Review Committee will include attendance from the 10th Street subdivision developer. We'll be talking specifically about the solutions that'll help them get to the point where we have capacity to accommodate all 26 units of that new development. And also we'll be talking about their timeline. We did not have a DRC meeting this past month because we had no significant applications before the DRC. So this is one of those that we cancel unless there is something substantial. This coming month is the first time we'll have something substantial for about 2 months.
It's another solid contract.
Personnel Committee, we talked about that, or that was an agenda item earlier. We are in the midst of putting the city administrators in the review. Beyond that, city events, well, we've got there's actually the Blackberry Jamboree this Saturday over at the South End Resource Center from 4 to 8 p.m. And we have the first responders event on September 11th. We already talked about that. And then Halloween will be here before we know. Any council comments?
I have like an informational one, probably just for TJ, honestly, but I did hear or see online that Junction City has selected a new city. Gives you a new friend.
Who's in trouble with the?
Yeah, immediately got another.
You do one that? Thanks.
He's elected official.
Yeah, you're gonna make sure.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Junction City what?
The new, they've selected a new city administrator.
Oh, why?
Yes, I read that and I haven't had the opportunity to meet with them yet, but I will be coordinating an in-person meeting in a couple weeks from now. I understand Michelle from Harrisburg has already met them, and I forget which county they were serving as a county commissioner in, but they're actually moving from there to here.
Okay, any other comments from council? Okay, well, mayor doesn't make comments, mayor's tired. So, councilors can't run away, they have things to sign. But we are done. I wish you all a lovely evening, get some rest, thank you for being here tonight. Good night.
Thank you, everyone.
Good night.
Thank you, good night.
TJ, are you still on, TJ?
Yes.
When you come into town, I'd like to have a meeting with you. It'll probably be about an hour long.